Chapter 523. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to shrink as well. That man looked to be around 30 years old. He was tall, had broad shoulders and a narrow waist. He wore a long dark green robe and was like a sword that had yet to be unsheathed, deep and reserved. However, when she saw his face clearly, Chu Liyue suddenly widened her eyes. His eyebrows were slanted to his temples, his nose bridge was high, his cheeks were angular, and his pair of black jade-like eyes were incomparably deep. He was really handsome. However, what shocked Chu Liyue wasn't his outstanding appearance, but, this is the face of a Taizu. In the ancestral hall of the Tianling dynasty's royal family, there was a portrait of a Taizu. This man's face was exactly the same as the portrait of a Taizu. No, it should be said, that the portrait was exactly the same as this man. Chu Liyue's mind went blank for a moment. Her heart beat violently, almost causing her eardrums to hurt. This is a Taizu? This is a Taizu. That man carefully examined the heavenly square cauldron in his hand for a while, and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. I couldn't tell that a little girl like you really has a rare treasure on you. As he spoke, he looked up at Chu Liyue and saw that this little girl was staring at him in a daze as if she had lost her mind. He suddenly couldn't help but laugh. What's with your expression? I was just curious and took it to take a look. It's not like I want to snatch it from you. As he spoke, he raised his hand, and the heavenly square cauldron flew in front of Chu Liyue. Since you've already broken the Shen formation I set up and taken this thing away, then it's yours. I won't take it back. Chu Liyue instantly felt the pressure on her body dissipate. She stretched out her hand stiffly and took back the heavenly square cauldron, but her eyes were still staring at that man in a daze. Taizu. She actually saw a Taizu. Even in her previous life she had always planned to enter the Tianling God realm, but she had never thought that she would actually be able to see Taizu. Her heart seemed to be filled with a warm current, and the tip of her nose was slightly sour. The man thought that the girl wouldn't look at him like that after he returned the item. Unexpectedly, not only was she still watching, but her eyes were also red. Looking at that pair of bright red rabbit-like eyes, he immediately felt a headache coming on. Hey little girl, why are you crying? Sheng Guanjing was not afraid of anything in his life. The only thing he was afraid of was seeing someone cry. Moreover, this person was a young lady. Wasn't he just joking? Why did this girl make it seem like he had bullied her? He had only symbolically exerted his pressure, and it would not hurt this girl at all. Moreover, she had the power of the heavenly Tao in her body, so there was no need to worry. Don't cry. Didn't I say that this thing is already yours? Sheng Guanjing was a little flustered. How about, you take all the treasures here with you? Is that okay? There's no one in this world who doesn't like money, right? Only then did Chu Liyue regain her senses, and her lips trembled slightly. Thank you, senior. The two words Taizu almost slipped out of her mouth. Although she tried her best to make herself look calm, her slightly trembling voice revealed that her emotions were still fluctuating at this time. Sheng Guanjing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that this girl had finally spoken. However, a faint doubt arose in his heart. This girl's reaction to me seems a little too much. Perhaps it's because I appeared too suddenly? Thinking of this, he waved his hand and smiled casually. You don't have to be afraid. I'm just a remnant consciousness stored in the Long Yuan sword. Chu Liyue nodded slightly, but she was a little disappointed. So this is not Taizu's soul? What's your name? Where are you from? How did you get in? Seeing that she had returned to normal, Sheng Guanjing asked. In the past, only people from the Tianling dynasty's royal family could enter the Tianling God realm. This girl clearly doesn't have the bloodline of the Tianling dynasty. Furthermore, he knew that many people had come outside and they were all like this. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and said seriously, I'm Chu Liyue. I'm Chu Liyue, and I'm from country Yao Chen outside of Heaven's Canopy. I came to the Tianling God realm this time because of the Wanzheng competition. After that, she briefly explained the cause and effect of the matter. Sheng Guanjing frowned when he heard the end. He didn't expect that after 1,000 years, the people of the Tianling royal family would actually act so recklessly. This wasn't because he didn't want people outside the Tianling royal family to enter, but this so-called Wanzheng competition clearly had other motives. Most people wouldn't be able to last too long here. Instead, they might be injured because of this extremely dangerous environment. Wasn't that the case for the previous ones? You said that it was the third Princess Sheng Guanwan and her husband who are now in power. What did you say? Sheng Guanjing asked. Yes. Do you know if there's anything unusual about Sheng Guanwan? Chu Liyue hesitated for a moment. Of course, she knew what was wrong with Sheng Guanwan. Her Yuan meridian had been destroyed more than a year ago. If it was an ordinary injury, there were plenty of celestial physicians in the Tianling dynasty who could treat it. However, Shengguan Wan's Yuan meridian was burned by her Tianjing Yuan meridian. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to recover. However, in the past few days in Xiling, after secretly asking around, she was surprised to find that the news of Shengguan Wan's Yuan meridian being destroyed hadn't spread. Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. If others knew that her Yuan meridian was damaged and couldn't be repaired, she definitely wouldn't be able to sit firmly in her current position. Although she didn't know what method she used, she had indeed successfully hidden it from everyone. Alright, except for Jiang Yuqing. What I mean is there a problem with her cultivation? Shengguan Jing asked in more detail. Chu Luiyue calmed down and nodded. I only heard that there seems to be a problem with her Yuan meridian. No wonder. Shengguan Jing looked as if he had expected it. Chu Luiyue was even more puzzled. From the looks of it, Taizu actually seemed to know why Shengguan Wan was holding this Wanzheng competition. Senior, what do you mean by this? She asked softly. Shengguan Jing's expression became much more serious. He placed his hands behind his back, shook his head and sighed. Forget it, forget it. It's good that you don't know these things. In short, it's a disgrace for the Tianling royal family to have such an evil descendant. Chu Luiyue wanted to ask again, but after thinking about it, she didn't say anything. Shengguan Jing suddenly thought of something and looked her up and down. Speaking of which, how did you get into this hall? Chu Luiyue glanced at the three-eyed eagle beside her and coughed in embarrassment. I won't hide it from you, senior. I'm actually here for this skeleton this time. The divine beast I contracted only has a soul. I wanted to help it recover its physical body, so I barged in. That's not what I'm talking about. Shengguan Jing's expression was a little strange. You might not know, but the door of this hall can only be opened by people with the bloodline of the Tianling royal family. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 524. Chu Luiyue was dazed as if someone had hit her head on with a stick. Only people with the Tianling royal family's bloodline could enter. How did she get in? Even though she was Shengguan Yu, her body had already been replaced by Chu Luiyue's. It was impossible for them to have the same bloodline. She remembered clearly that the door had appeared directly in the golden flames. What happened? Suddenly her heart skipped a beat. It was the Black Pyramid. At that time she didn't do anything. The Black Pyramid flew out on its own and the door opened. There was also that subtle connection between them. From the beginning to the end, the Black Pyramid had been the one controlling everything. Chu Luiyue's heart was in a mess. The Black Pyramid was something from country Yao Chen's imperial mausoleum. How was it related to the Tianling dynasty? There seemed to be a cloud of fog in front of her, preventing her from seeing what was happening. I don't know either, Chu Luiyue muttered softly. Shengguan Jing looked at her expression and confirmed that she really didn't know anything. He smiled. You have a lot of treasures on you. One of them seems to be related to the Tianling dynasty. Chu Luiyue paused. You know? This is my territory. Of course no one knows better than me how you got in. Shengguan Jing shook his head with a smile. This girl looks quite smart, and her talent and strength are very good. Why is she a little dazed? He pointed with his finger. The Black Pyramid in Chu Luiyue's body flew out instantly. Senior, Chu Luiyue's heart tightened, but when she thought that Taizu might be able to see through the secret, she swallowed her words. Shengguan Jing raised his hand to take the Black Pyramid. A hidden and powerful pressure suddenly erupted from it. Shengguan Jing stopped. The seal on it? This seal was extremely powerful. Even he couldn't break it. His expression was slightly restrained as he looked over. At first glance, this small Black Pyramid didn't seem to be anything special. However, when one got closer, they could feel the tyrannical aura of the seal. Not to mention the little girl in front of him, even in the entire Tianling dynasty, there was probably no one with such strength. Do you know who placed the seal on it? He looked at Chu Luiyue with an extremely solemn expression. Chu Luiyue seemed to have sensed something. He nodded and then shook his head. I've only heard that person's voice, but I've never seen him. Was there something wrong with the seal? Shengguan Jing was silent for a moment. In fact, he could feel that there was an extremely familiar aura in the Black Pyramid, but because of the seal, he couldn't investigate it more clearly. He really had no idea why the other party would spend so much effort to set up this seal. This should be the reason why this girl was able to come in. The person who laid down this seal is extremely powerful. He spoke slowly. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement. She was certain of this. However, to be able to make Taizu say this, the person should be even stronger than she had imagined. Sheng Wanjing pushed his palm, and the black pyramid flew back to Chu Luiyue. She took a closer look and didn't see anything unusual. You're young, but you've had a lot of opportunities. Sheng Wanjing sighed. Whether it was the mysterious and powerful item she had on her or the unfathomable powerhouse she had met, other people might not have luck in their entire lives, but she was only in her teens and she had all of them. You must keep this thing well, Sheng Wanjing suddenly said seriously. Chu Luiyue nodded in confusion. Since you can come in here, you and I are somewhat fated. Originally, I planned to leave this Long Yuan sword to them. But now it seems that it's better to give it to you. The Tianling royal family is already in such a mess. With this Long Yuan sword, it might even increase their arrogance. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Senior, you mean? But this Long Yuan sword is... The Long Yuan sword should be passed down to someone with the Tianling royal family's bloodline. Now that she was just an outsider, Taizu actually planned to do this. Sheng Wanjing suddenly gave a sly smile. Lass, you clearly guessed my identity long ago. Why are you pretending not to know? This Long Yuan sword is mine to begin with. I can give it to whoever I want. He crossed his arms and looked at Chu Luiyue. Also, for some reason when I saw you, I felt very close to you. Perhaps this is fate? If he didn't really like this lass, he wouldn't have said so much to her here. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a while. It would be a lie to say that she didn't want the Long Yuan sword. But what identity should she accept it with now? As if seeing Chu Luiyue's dilemma, Sheng Wanjing waved his hand and smiled. You don't have to worry about anything else. Because the Long Yuan sword also chose you. Chu Luiyue looked up in shock. What? Sheng Wanjing smiled and shook his head. Otherwise, why do you think the last Tianlei of the Long Yuan sword hasn't fallen yet? It's waiting for me. Chu Luiyue seemed to have boiling magma rolling between her chest and abdomen, causing her entire body to tremble slightly. She suddenly knelt down on both knees and bowed sincerely and respectfully. Junior. Chu Luiyue kneels and thanks. Taizu. Her head rested on the gorgeous, ice-cold jade-paved floor. A teardrop fell silently. Boom. A loud crash could be heard. The people who were waiting outside the sinkhole all looked up at the same time. The scorching sun in the sky suddenly fell and rushed toward the Long Yuan sword. The last bolt of heavenly thunder arrived. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 525. The scorching sun, wrapped in intense and dazzling light and heat, streaked across the sky. Finally, it landed on the Long Yuan sword's hilt. Boom. Countless streams of light scattered, and the huge black sword was instantly enveloped by the dazzling light. The sky lost the sun and quickly darkened. The Long Yuan sword instantly became the brightest and most powerful existence in this world. A cluster of flames suddenly emerged from the cracked ground. The terrifying heat spread along the Long Yuan sword. Immediately after, more and more flames started to emerge from the ground. They burned fiercely. The surrounding temperature started to rise crazily. Quick. Let's go. Cho Ding panicked and hurriedly retreated. But just as he took 2 steps back, he felt a burning pain. He turned around to take a look, only to realize that flames had appeared behind him at some point in time. The clothes on his back immediately burned. The terrifying pain caused his facial features to distort. He hurriedly tore off his clothes. But there were already more than a dozen large blisters on his back. Although he couldn't see the situation on his body, the pain was real. He didn't care about anything else and started to quickly escape. Whoever wanted to continue waiting could do so themselves. Perhaps the Long Yuan sword wouldn't come, but death. He simply crushed the bronze pearl in his hand. The next moment, his figure immediately disappeared from the spot. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qin were stunned when they saw this scene. No one expected that the Long Yuan sword's last Tianlei, which they had waited so long for, would be so terrifying. The two of them also retreated without hesitation. But their gazes were still fixed on the Long Yuan sword. The two of them looked at each other and saw the surging murderous intent in each other's eyes. Ning Jiaojiao laughed. The sky of the Tianling God realm is going to change. Yang Qin, are you still not leaving? Yang Qiner's face no longer had the previous gentleness and shyness. She responded with a smile, but this smile was very fierce, making people who looked at it feel a chill in their hearts. You haven't left, so how can I leave? The 81st Tianlei of the Long Yuan sword has already descended and is about to choose a new master. I've been practicing swordsmanship since I was young, and I'll enter the purple Shao sword sect to cultivate in the future. On the other hand, you have nothing to do with swordsmanship. Do you think the Long Yuan sword will choose you? Ning Jiaojiao felt stifled in her heart. Before she came, she didn't expect the Long Yuan sword to awaken. But since he had caught up, how could he give up just like that? It was better to be safe than sorry. Yang Qin, you have nothing to be proud of. The Long Yuan sword was a divine weapon. If it only wanted to choose a sword practitioner as its new master, it would have chosen a long time ago. How could it be your turn? It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Just as she finished speaking, another ball of flame appeared under her feet. Ning Jiaojiao tiptoed and was about to fly up. However, in the next moment she was shocked to discover that she was actually unable to soar into the sky. How could this be? As she fled in a hurry, she cried out in alarm. Yang Qin also realized that something was wrong, and her expression changed drastically. If they were unable to fly, they would sooner or later be burned to death in this sea of fire. The two of them didn't have time to argue and began to dodge each other's attacks. However, more and more flames emerged from the ground, and there was no way to avoid them. Yang Qin suddenly threw her sword out and leaped into the air. In this way he finally dodged the endless flames. Ning Jiaojiao secretly gritted her teeth. She waved her sleeves and a green barrier instantly appeared in front of her. It enveloped her. Who wasn't prepared? The two of them were locked in a fierce fight, but on the other side Chang Wanzhou didn't do anything. He only retreated a distance, but he was still looking in the direction of the crater. Moreover, he didn't have any defenses around him. Balls of flames began to burn around him. However, he looked as if nothing had happened. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't do anything. He was using the cold evil energy in his body to block the corrosion of the flames. Only by looking closely would one be able to see that his skin was covered with a layer of frost that quickly melted away. This cycle repeated itself. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to withstand the continuous exchange of these two extreme powers, but this was nothing to Chang Wanzhou. The cold evil energy in his body had accumulated for many years, and he was already used to it. Now that he could use the power of the flames to gradually melt the cold evil energy in his body, he felt that it was a good thing. In addition, Chu Luiyue had already used pills to help him recuperate his body. His tolerance for the flames far exceeded that of ordinary people. There's something wrong with that Chang Wanzhou. Ning Jiaojiao noticed the situation at Chang Wanzhou's side and muttered softly. Compared to her and Yang Qin's sorry state, Chang Wanzhou looked more at ease. She thought of something and gave Yang Qin a look. Yang Qin instantly understood what she meant. She originally didn't want to work with Ning Jiaojiao, but when she saw Chang Wanzhou's calm and composed appearance, her heart wavered. After hesitating for a moment, she nodded slightly. The two of them came to a consensus. After a short pause, the two of them rushed toward Chang Wanzhou from different directions. Chang Wanzhou was focused on waiting for Chu Luiyue to come out. He had already vaguely sensed her aura. However, at this moment he suddenly felt a sense of danger approaching. He suddenly looked up and saw the two of them rushing toward him. Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qin didn't expect Chang Wanzhou to be so sharp. They were both shocked for a moment. However, they didn't know that Chang Wanzhou grew up in Nanjiang and was already as vigilant as a wild beast. Therefore, just as they were about to make a move, they were caught red-handed by him. The three of them were silent for a moment. Ning Jiaojiao revealed a fake smile. "We want to talk to you about something." Chang Wanzhou spoke first. "You want to join forces to deal with me?" It wasn't a question but a statement. Ning Jiaojiao's expression froze. In the next moment Yang Qin had already made the first move. A poisonous dart flew out instantly. Chang Wanzhou raised his hand, and a force quickly transformed into a long sword. Ding! The poisonous dart hit the blade. It actually rebounded instantly. It fell into a ball of fire at the side. In the blink of an eye the poisonous dart melted. Yang Qin's hand trembled slightly. Chang Wanzhou's attack was steady, accurate and ruthless. Moreover, his strength was much stronger than hers. On the other side, Ning Jiaojiao threw out a Xin formation crystal. A huge Xin formation immediately appeared above Chang Wanzhou's head. It completely trapped him. Ning Jiaojiao was only a level 4 Xin master. In order to win the Wanzheng competition this time, she had made sufficient preparations. This Xin formation crystal was engraved with a level 6 Xin formation. Even an intermediate stage 6 warrior might not be able to escape from it, let alone Chang Wanzhou who had just broken through to stage 6 warrior. Chang Wanzhou looked up at the Xin formation. The light reflected in his eyes was as dazzling as the stars. His sharp chin was clenched and his fair, almost transparent face seemed to be covered with a thin layer of frost. Just as Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qin thought they were going to win, the Long Yuan sword suddenly let out an earth-shattering sword cry. Bus. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 526. Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qianshan hurriedly turned back to look. The Long Yuan sword is going to recognize its master. On the vast land there was an endless sea of fire. A huge black sword stood in the middle. Accompanied by this shocking sword hum, a pressure that seemed to have come from ancient times surged out wildly and spread across the world in a mighty manner. Crack. A deep crack suddenly appeared on the ground. It was like a bottomless ravine. The Long Yuan sword was about to be born. The Long Yuan sword has chosen its master. Yang Qin looked at this scene in a daze and suddenly realized something. If not, the Long Yuan sword wouldn't have made such a move. Ning Jiaojiao was also taken aback by his words. After a short moment of daze, her heart sank fiercely. How is this possible? No one here has been chosen. There were only the three of them here. Chang Wanzhou was trapped under her Xian formation, and she and Yang Qin stayed by each side. No one had become the new master of the Long Yuan sword. Unless there was someone else here. At this moment, an extremely bright light suddenly appeared from the bottom of the Long Yuan sword. A figure could be vaguely seen in it. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao were once again pushed back by that terrifying aura. However, the two of them didn't have time to care about anything else and immediately looked up. However, that light was too blinding and they couldn't see who it was at all. In the blur, they could only see that the person flew to the top of the Long Yuan sword. Then that person held the sword with both hands. Boom. The ground started to shake violently. With the Long Yuan sword as the center, countless deep ravines spread out. Who is that? Who is that? Ning Jiaojiao was filled with hatred, and she almost broke her teeth from clenching them. They had been fighting here and there, but she didn't expect that someone had already beaten them to it. Her painstaking efforts were all in vain. Yang Qin was originally filled with hatred, but when she heard Ning Jiaojiao's vicious curses, she suddenly said, "No matter who that person is, we have to stop him." Ning Jiaojiao frowned. Are you crazy? The Long Yuan sword has already recognized its master. Whatever we do now is useless. How can we stop it? With their current strength, they probably couldn't even get close to the Long Yuan sword. Yang Qin sneered. Looks like you really don't know anything about sword Dao. The Long Yuan sword was a divine weapon. Even if it chose to recognize a master, it would still take some time. During this process, the person chosen by it must be fully focused. Once disturbed. You mean, since we've already joined forces, we might as well solve this problem as well. Even if we can't get the Long Yuan sword, no one else can. Yang Qin's words moved Ning Jiaojiao. She only thought for a moment and immediately agreed. All right. After saying that, the two of them looked at each other and rushed towards the figure in the air. But just as the two of them moved, a terrifying wave of energy suddenly came from the side. The two of them subconsciously turned to look, only to see that Chang Wanzhou had already torn apart the Xian formation. It flew towards the two of them. How did he do it? Ning Jiaojiao cried out in shock. That was a level 6 Xian formation. Chang Wanzhou actually cracked it so quickly? It was a pity that the two of them were so focused on the Long Yuan sword that they didn't even know how Chang Wanzhou won. Yang Qin immediately said. You go and stop him. Ning Jiaojiao immediately retorted. Why should it be me? Who knew if Yang Qin would take the opportunity to attack the Long Yuan sword? As if seeing through her thoughts, Yang Qin sneered. Do you think it's so easy for the Long Yuan sword to recognize a new master? Stop dreaming. If you want to go over there, we can exchange. Ning Jiaojiao choked and quickly glanced at the Long Yuan sword. She was a little scared. I'll go, she said angrily and rushed towards Chang Wanzhou. Yang Qin flew up on the sword. The closer she got, the stronger the Long Yuan sword's aura. Helplessly she could only stop. Unfortunately, she still couldn't see the figure in the ball of light. She took a deep breath and clasped her hands together. A burly figure suddenly appeared in front of her. It was a man whose entire body was bronze in color. Whether it was his appearance or his figure, he was no different from a normal man. Only his eye sockets were empty and black. Also, he didn't have the aura of a living person. This was Yang Qin's trump card, a puppet that she had refined with a special secret technique. She stared at the puppet's empty eye sockets and enunciated each word as if she was trying to bewitch it. Go and kill that person. As his voice fell, Two balls of dark green flames suddenly burned in the puppet's eye sockets. He nodded stiffly. His voice was hoarse and rough, like metal grinding against each other. "Yes, master." Swoosh. His figure moved, and in an instant he was like an arrow leaving the bow, heading straight for that dazzling ball of light. Yang Qin narrowed her eyes, and a determined sneer flashed across her lips. She had obtained this puppet with much difficulty. Originally, she had thought that she wouldn't use it unless she had no other choice. She didn't expect that the Wanzheng competition would force her to this extent. However, on second thought, this was for the Long Yuan sword, so there was nothing to hesitate about. She didn't want to lose the competition and have the Long Yuan sword snatched away by someone else. Chu Luiyue gripped the hilt of the Long Yuan sword tightly with both hands. Her palms were boiling hot. Sensing the movement beside her, she glanced from the corner of her eye and saw the figure rushing towards her. She focused her gaze and frowned slightly. A cold glint flashed across her eyes. It's actually a puppet? The method to refine this puppet was extremely cruel and insidious. It required a cultivator to extract all their internal organs while they were still alive. Then it would be infused with a specially made secret medicine and a special seal. It would take a full 100 days to refine. During this process, the cultivator's consciousness had to be maintained. After days and nights of pain and suffering, their soul would be destroyed the moment they completed the refinement, and they would die completely. As this secret technique was too cruel and ruthless, it had always been banned in the entire mainland. She didn't expect to see it here. Chu Luiyue turned her gaze and saw Yang Qin staring at her. She instantly understood. She didn't expect this to be her. This Yang Qin's background was probably not that simple. Just as the puppet was about to rush over, a huge black phantom suddenly appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. It was the legendary three-eyed eagle. It spread its wings and almost covered the sky. The next moment, it swooped down towards the puppet. The smile on Yang Qin's face froze. That's the legendary divine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle? Who exactly is the person in the ball of light? How did he contract with such a divine beast? Ah! A mournful scream suddenly rang out. She immediately turned around and saw Ning Jiaojiao being defeated, and her body was already covered in blood. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold as he slashed down with his sword. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 527. Ning Jiaojiao's figure instantly disappeared. At this point she was also officially eliminated. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold as he quickly looked up. Chu Luiyue was in that ball of light. He tipped his toes and immediately flew toward Yang Qin. Yang Qin's heart sank. She was only at the peak of stage 5. She was no match for Chang Wanzhou. Wait. She hurriedly spoke. Chang Wanzhou went around her and stood in front of her, looking at her expressionlessly. Yang Qin felt a chill run down her spine and hurriedly said, "We can work together first." Chang Wanzhou frowned. Yang Qin explained, "The Long Yuan sword has already chosen its owner. It didn't choose either of us. Why don't we work together first and stop that person?" As she spoke, she pointed in the direction of Chu Luiyue. Chang Wanzhou's expression became even stranger. This Yang Qin, does she think that I'll work with her to attack Chu Luiyue? Yang Qin saw his reaction and thought that he was tempted. She hurriedly continued to persuade him. "Don't worry. We don't have to take the risk. The puppet I sent out will deal with that person." Chang Wanzhou turned around to take a look. The puppet was fighting with the legendary three-eyed eagle. Yang Qin suddenly felt a little guilty. That divine beast is just an illusion. It's easy to deal with. Suddenly her gaze shifted. Right. Why don't we go up together? We don't have to win. As long as we interfere with that person, the Long Yuan sword won't be able to recognize its owner. And that person will also suffer a backlash. Even if he doesn't die, he will be crippled. While she was talking excitedly on her own, Chang Wanzhou's gaze had already frozen bit by bit. The next moment his aura skyrocketed. Yang Qin thought that he was going to agree to help. Just as she smiled, she saw Chang Wanzhou rushing toward her. The smile on her face instantly disappeared, and she retreated in panic. "What are you doing?" "I said we'll deal with that person together." "You're crazy." Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips tightly and quickly appeared in front of her. He raised the long sword in his hand. He slashed it down. Xuanji Square. This was the 6th day of the Wanzheng competition. Most people were eliminated on the first day. The later it went on, the fewer people were eliminated every day. However, this did not make them impatient. Instead, it made them even more excited. Many things had happened in Shilin City in the past few days. Everyone was still talking about them happily. The biggest topic of discussion was, what rank would Chu Luiyue get? As the person with the lowest cultivation level among the hundreds of competitors, Chu Luiyue naturally became the focus of everyone's discussion. The longer she was Wanzhou, the higher the crowd was Wanzhou. Even in some of the more remote corners of the square, there were already gambling houses. Wanzhou is 2 Wanzhous. It's now. Wanzhou. The competition is about to end. If we don't act now, it will be too late. Eyes of the thought of Wanzhou. This is the last of my money. Hey, what are you thinking about? Can't you just bet on one? There are only 6 people left. Isn't that easy to guess? Then I'll bet on Chu Luiyue to be 6th. Are you sure? Young Master Jian from Dragon Teeth Mountain bet half of his fortune on Chu Luiyue to be 1st. Are you sure you want to pick 6th? I'm not stupid. How can Chu Luiyue be 1st? Jian Fengqi, to put it nicely, is spending a lot of money to win a beauty's smile. To put it bluntly, he's a fool with a lot of money. How can we compare to him? She'll be 6th. She'll be the next one to be eliminated. Place your bets. You can't go back on your words. Yuan Jinghong and Jian Fengqi happened to walk past. Jian Fengqi suddenly stopped when he heard his name. He rubbed his chin and smiled. So that's what everyone is saying about me now. He took the time to come to Xuanji Square today to see how the competition was going. After all, he had bet a lot of money on Chu Luiyue. He didn't expect to hear these words as soon as he arrived. Yuan Jinghong coughed. You're not angry, are you? Actually, they're just saying. Why would I be angry? I'm more than happy that someone is giving me money. Yuan Jinghong said in surprise. Are you serious? You still want to gamble? Jian Fengqi looked at him lovingly. I don't have much, but I have a lot of money. Of course, you might not understand this, but don't worry, I won't look down on you because of this. Yuan Jinghong's mouth twitched. This guy is asking for a beating. Whatever. I do want to see how much money Jian Fengqi has left to squander. Jian Fengqi walked over with a smile. Smack. A ring of cosmos appeared on the gambling table. Everyone was silent for a moment, then turned to look at the owner of the ring. It was Jian Fengqi. The person who spoke ill of him lowered his head in panic. Jian Fengqi didn't take it seriously at all. He said with a smile, there are 5,000 white crystal coins in here. I bet that Chu Luiyue will win. Everyone was still silent, but the way they looked at the ring of cosmos changed. 5,000 white crystal coins. Wasn't this the same as giving them money for free? Jian Fengqi had already bet so much in all the major casinos in West Hill. They didn't expect him to patronize a small gambling house like theirs. And young Master Jian, are you sure? Jian Fengqi glanced at the person who spoke earlier and smiled. Don't worry, I don't care about this little money. Just for fun. The man's legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. Everyone looked at each other. Young Master Jian is indeed generous. Jian Fengqi took out his bone fan and took 2 steps back. Someone has been eliminated. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise from the side. The bustling square suddenly quieted down. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the 8 teleportation arrays. Ripples were surging. This was a sign that someone was about to come out. A moment later, a figure rushed out. She fell heavily to the ground. It's a woman. Who is it? Who is it? Is it Chu Luiyue? The crowd began to stir and many people couldn't wait to see. The woman was lying on the ground, covered in blood and with many burn marks on her body. She looked very miserable. Obviously, her experience in the Tianling God realm was also somewhat miserable. As if she heard the commotion around her, the woman moved and raised her head. A bloody face appeared in front of everyone. It's Ning Jiaojiao. Xianfeng Hall's Ning Jiaojiao. Someone reacted and shouted, pointing at the black jade board. The name that disappeared is Ning Jiaojiao. The surroundings fell into a strange silence. Ning Jiaojiao was the only daughter of the Xianfeng Hall master. How could she be eliminated so easily? Where's Chu Luiyue? Jian Fengqi tapped his bone fan lightly in his hand and looked back. Many people, including the man who had criticized him, turned pale. It seemed that many people had bet on Chu Luiyue being the 6th. He comforted them very sincerely. Don't be nervous. The good show is yet to come. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 528. Ning Jiaojiao looked around in a daze before realizing what had happened. She was forced to leave the Tianling God realm. She was eliminated. Countless pairs of eyes with different expressions landed on her body, causing her to feel extremely uncomfortable. she still failed. Whether it was the Long Yuan sword or the Wanzheng competition, she didn't get anything other than injuries. She clenched her fists and smashed them on the ground. But as soon as she moved, she felt a sharp pain. She didn't know when, but the back of her hand had also been burned with a few huge blisters. After tossing around like this, it was incomparably painful. Ning Jiaojiao's face was contorted from the pain. I didn't expect Ning Jiaojiao to be sixth. I thought it would definitely be Chu Luiyue. Even if it wasn't Chu Luiyue, it should be someone else. Ning Jiaojiao is considered the one with the best status among these people, right? Even if you think with your toes, you know that her father must have helped her prepare a lot. I really don't know what's going on inside. Chaotic discussions entered her ears. Ning Jiaojiao suddenly froze. What are these people talking about? Shouldn't Chu Luiyue have been eliminated long ago? She looked at the black jade board floating in midair almost instinctively. Most of the names on the jadestone board had disappeared. The remaining 5 names were especially clear. She saw one of the names at first glance, Chu Luiyue. Her name was on the list. I haven't been eliminated yet. Ning Jiaojiao's mind was completely blank. How could this be? Chu Luiyue had already been swallowed by the golden flames in the crater. She should have already left the Tianling God realm at that time. What's going on now? Her face was as pale as a ghost. She reached out with difficulty and pointed at Chu Luiyue's name, her voice trembling. Chu Luiyue is still there. The 8 elders standing beside the teleportation portal looked at each other. Actually, they were also very confused about this matter. But this was the truth. Elder Duanmu Chun nodded, confirming her conjecture. That's right. You're sixth. The remaining 5 people haven't come out yet. A scene suddenly appeared in Ning Jiaojiao's mind. When the Long Yuan sword recognized its master, a ball of light rushed out from the bottom of the sinkhole. Within it there was indeed a figure. Could it be, that was Chu Luiyue? No. Even if that person was Chu Luiyue, there were only 4 of them. How could there be 6 of them? She once again looked at the 5 names on the jade board seriously and urgently. Other than Chu Luiyue, Yang Qin'er, and Chang Wanzhou, there were 2 other people whom she had never seen before. What the hell is going on? Ning Jiaojiao's heart was in a mess. Countless conjectures collided in her mind, causing her head to hurt. She hugged her head in pain and screamed in despair. Everyone was shocked by her reaction. However, Ning Jiaojiao's eyes rolled back and she fainted on the ground. Elder Duanmu Chun immediately replied. Hurry up and take her away for treatment. Yes. The black cavalry around the square immediately went forward and carried Ning Jiaojiao away. However, Ning Jiaojiao's crazed appearance just now still made them feel a lingering fear. The few elders looked at each other with some worry in their hearts. It was obvious that she had encountered some kind of stimulation in the Tianling God realm. It was a pity that they were only in charge of guarding and operating this teleportation formation and had no way of knowing what was going on inside. Elder Duanmu Chun frowned and sighed. He had long said that the Tianling God realm could not be opened casually, and these people who did not have the Tianling royal bloodline could not be allowed in. Now, something had indeed happened. However, it was already too late to stop it now. The only thing they could do was pray that the situation would not become worse. Yuan Jinghong looked at the names on the jade board and clicked his tongue. At first, he thought that Jian Fengqi was crazy to bet on Chu Luiyue, but now, it seemed that it was not completely hopeless. This really happened. Jian Fengqi would simply become rich overnight. Should he also bet a little more? Where did you find such a powerful lass? He went to Jian Fengqi and asked in a low voice. Jian Fengqi glanced at him condescendingly. Yuan Jinghong immediately shut his mouth and silently walked to the gambling table at the side. I'll add 1,000 white crystals. Tianling God Realm. Yang Qin'er flew on her sword and narrowly avoided Chang Wanzhou's attack. However, the sharp wind from the blade still left a wound on her shoulder. She quickly glanced at the wound on her shoulder. Blood was flowing out and her entire arm was quickly dyed red. If that attack had been a little more direct, it would have been her head that was chopped off. Yang Qin'er was terrified, and a deep sense of fear finally welled up in her heart. She was no match for Chang Wanzhou at all. If this continued, Chang Wanzhou would be able to force her out of the Tianling God realm in a few moves. She hurriedly looked up. Her puppet was currently engaged in a fierce battle with the phantom of the divine beast. Right at this moment, the Long Yuan sword's aura suddenly surged again. Countless ravines crisscrossed on the ground. Lightning flashed on the gigantic black sword. The wind howled. The sky had completely darkened, and only the Long Yuan sword shone brilliantly. Bus, bus. The sword's cry shook heaven and earth. Chu Luiyue gripped the sword hilt tightly with both hands and his heart pounded. All the power in his life surged out at this moment. The vast land filled with endless sea of fire seemed to be lifted at this moment. The long yuan sword that had been buried deep underground for 1,000 years finally moved. Chu Luiyue's face flushed red, and his eyes burned with a crazy fighting spirit. The next moment, the long yuan sword rose. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 529. In an instant, all the light in the world seemed to be swallowed by the long yuan sword. Before Yang Qin'er could see the figure clearly, she felt a terrifying wave of energy coming toward her. She hurriedly summoned the puppet, wanting to use it to block it. However, at that moment, the legendary three-eyed eagle's third eye suddenly opened. The bronze-colored puppet immediately burst apart. Yang Qin'er widened her eyes. That puppet was her most important trump card. However, it had been destroyed so easily. Chang Wanzhou took the opportunity to attack. The blade glinted coldly. Yang Qin'er felt a chill down her spine. She slowly lowered her head and saw the sharp tip of the blade coming out of her chest. Indignation, anger, fear, she panicked. Just as she was about to speak, that wave of energy had already hit her body. Poof! She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her organs felt like they were about to be crushed. Then, her figure finally disappeared from the spot. Chang Wanzhou looked up. Chu Luiyue stood in the air. The long yuan sword was in her hands, officially awakened. The light was dazzling and sparks were flying everywhere. He almost couldn't see the situation in the ball of light, but he could accurately feel that Chu Luiyue's aura was soaring. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue finally raised the long yuan sword high up. Boom! The ground completely collapsed. The endless sea of fire started to collapse. The energy between heaven and earth seemed to have lost control in an instant. It became extremely chaotic and rushed toward the long yuan sword. In this terrifying storm, Chang Wanzhou looked as far as he could. In midair, Chu Luiyue raised the sword with both hands. Against the backdrop of the huge sword, her figure appeared even more exquisite and petite. However, it wasn't small at all. The long yuan sword was indeed powerful, but it had already become her sword. An extremely ferocious aura surged toward him. Chang Wanzhou slightly staggered his feet, his muscles tensed and the force in his body surged rapidly. However, just as the aura was about to sweep over, it suddenly stopped in front of him. Everything around him was being destroyed except for him. Chang Wanzhou looked at the figure above, a faint light flashing in his eyes. In the next moment, his figure finally disappeared on the spot. Now you are the only one left in the Tianling God realm. Taizu's voice entered his ears. The Dragon Abyss sword can now officially recognize its master. Chu Luiyue slowly tightened his grip on the sword hilt. He looked into the distance and nodded slightly. In the next moment, she raised the long yuan sword above her head. Countless amounts of energy poured into it, even forming a huge energy storm at the top. Chu Luiyue's force was being consumed at a crazy rate. The water droplet spun rapidly, and the energy within it flowed endlessly into her limbs and bones. Bang! A subtle sound suddenly rang out in his mind. Chu Luiyue actually broke through to become a stage 4 warrior at this time. The fourth pattern slowly appeared on the water droplet. Chu Luiyue went all out. Sword fall. An invisible force surged out from the long yuan sword and silently rushed forward. In the distant horizon, the bright moon hanging in the black night sky suddenly fell. Suddenly, the endless water below began to ripple. Instantly, it was like the moon splashing into the galaxy. Thousands of brilliant rays of light bloomed at the same time. Chu Luiyue watched everything unfold before her without blinking. Taizu's words were still ringing in her ears. If a stage 9 warrior can summon the heavenly Tao and successfully break through, they can create a small kiliacosm of their own. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed back then. At the last step, all my efforts were in vain. Although the heavenly Tao still remained here, it collapsed and scattered, causing this incomplete small kiliacosm to be split into two. Half of this world is water and the other half is fire. Half is extreme cold and the other half is extreme heat. And as time passed, the environment of these two halves became more and more extreme, finally forming the current state. In order to balance the power in this small kiliacosm, I also forcefully split the long yuan sword soul into two parts and suppressed each side. Of course, my remaining consciousness was also split into two halves. No matter which side you go to, the long yuan sword you obtain will be incomplete. Only by completely merging this small kiliacosm can you obtain the complete long yuan sword. Boom, boom, boom. That invisible sword aura directly passed through the dividing line in the middle. That was where Chu Luiyue and the rest were when they first arrived in the Tianling God realm. A huge black gap appeared in midair. Then, the golden flames started to burn in that direction, and the bright water also started to spread over here. The two halves of the world that were separated finally started to merge. Chu Luiyue was elated and couldn't help but ask, "Taizu, is this going to work?" An illusory figure suddenly appeared beside her. "You did very well." Sheng Guanjing stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the scene before him with a complicated expression. Although he had already expected Chu Luiyue to succeed, he didn't expect it to be so smooth. "This lasts. You have the power of the heavenly Tao in your body, and you can deal with the scattered heavenly Tao in this small kiliacosm. As long as the Long Yuan sword is completely awakened and absorbs all the heavenly Tao's power, you can truly become its new master." As he spoke, Sheng Guanjing let out a long sigh. "Everything is destined. In this world there's no one more suitable than you." All of this sounded simple, but it was actually very difficult to achieve. Just being a cultivator with the power of the heavenly Tao was extremely rare. Secondly, one had to have the bloodline of the Tianling royal family. Only then could one successfully open that door. Yet, Chu Luiyue fulfilled both of these strict conditions. Although he still had some doubts about the black pyramid in her body, Chu Luiyue's current performance was enough to explain everything. There was indeed no one more suitable than her for the Long Yuan sword's new master. Chu Luiyue didn't expect him to suddenly appear and was a little surprised. However, she quickly realized that Taizu's figure was actually gradually fading. Her heart sank. "Taizu, what are you?" Sheng Guanjing smiled and waved his hand. "It's fine. I've told you before that I'm just a remnant consciousness stored in this Long Yuan sword. Now that the Long Yuan sword has awakened and the small kiliacosm has been reconstructed, there's naturally no need for me to continue existing." Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. "Is there no other way? I've admired you for a long time." Sheng Guanjing looked at her anxious and nervous appearance and suddenly felt his heart soften. "I really like you very much. How good would it be if you were a descendant of the Tianling Shengguan family?" Chu Luiyue felt like something was stuck in her throat. Sheng Guanjing paused for a moment and said, "I have a request, but I don't know if you can agree to it. In that black pyramid of yours, perhaps, there are secrets related to the Shengguan family hidden. I wonder if you can help protect it?" Chu Luiyue felt a lump in her throat. "All right. I will do my best." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 530. Swoosh. A sword came from the horizon. A completely silver-white dragon abyss sword flew over from afar. It was the other half of the Long Yuan sword. It flew over at an extremely fast speed and then merged with the huge black sword in Chu Luiyue's hand. In the middle of the dark and restrained sword body, a dazzling silver light slowly appeared. The aura of the Long Yuan sword also gradually became stronger. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Previously, she thought that the Long Yuan sword was already strong enough. She did not expect that it was only half of its power. Now that the two Long Yuan swords had officially merged, the power was astonishing. A subtle connection gradually formed in her heart. It was the Long Yuan sword. As time passed, this feeling became stronger and stronger. And the Long Yuan sword in her hand also started to become lighter and lighter. Until a certain moment, the two swords finally completely merged into one. The sword body shone brightly. In the next moment, on the Long Yuan sword, one side burned with flames and the other side flowed. Chu Luiyue released her hands. The Long Yuan sword quietly floated in front of her. Between heaven and earth, one person and one sword. They stood opposite each other. Chu Luiyue shouted, "Long Yuan sword, condense." In a moment, the huge sword body dissipated. A normal-sized heavy sword appeared in front of her. Chu Luiyue held the sword in her hand again with reverence. This sword was completely black, simple and grand. Only in the middle there was an extremely thin silver groove. At this moment, the Long Yuan sword had already recognized its owner. It was also very easy for her to use. She did not need to use all her strength to forcefully wield it like before. She held the sword hilt and casually waved it. A black spatial crack appeared silently. It was actually so sharp. Chu Luiyue's eyes instantly lit up. The Long Yuan sword was indeed a divine weapon. The sharpness of this heavy sword was really the most she had ever seen. She saw Taizu from the corner of her eye and could not help but excitedly say, "Taizu, how did you forge this Long Yuan sword back then? It's really extremely powerful." Suddenly, her voice paused and she slowly turned her head. Taizu was also looking at her with a face of confusion. The two of them looked at each other and fell into silence. After a while, Chu Liwei asked tentatively, "Why are you here?" Taizu, you're still here?" Shengguan Jing looked at his illusion. After the Long Yuan sword officially recognized him as its master, his figure had indeed become much more illusory. At that time he thought that he would immediately disappear from this world. In fact, this should be the case. The reason why he could be stored in the Dragon Abyss sword was because the Dragon Abyss sword originally belonged to him. However, after the Long Yuan sword chose a new owner, logically speaking, he should not be able to continue existing. But now, not only was he fine, he even seemed to have become more solid. In the awkward silence, Shengguan Jing coughed and finally opened his mouth slowly. It seems to be a little different from what I expected. It seems that after 1,000 years, some things have changed. Chu Liwei was speechless. Suddenly, he felt that his emotions just now were a waste. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Taizu was still around, so she was naturally pleasantly surprised and happy. Although it was only a remnant consciousness, it was still very precious to her. "Taizu, then you will still be stored in the Long Yuan sword in the future, right?" Chu Liwei could not help but ask. Shengguan Jing's mood immediately improved when he saw her expectant look. This girl was very much to his liking. This was also very good. Ah, not bad. When Chu Liwei heard the affirmative answer, the corners of her mouth curled up into a brilliant smile. Now she really wanted to thank Shengguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing. If not for them holding this Wanzheng competition for no reason, how would she have the chance to meet Taizu? Take out the Long Yuan sword? She looked around. The heavenly Tao power in this small kiliacosm had already been absorbed into the Long Yuan sword. And now, the Long Yuan sword was already in her hands. This place could no longer be considered a divine realm. "Taizu, shall we go?" Chu Liwei asked. Shengguan Jing nodded and sighed softly. Although these two halves have already fused, without the power of the heavenly Tao, it will only be a ruin from now on. Chu Liwei asked hesitantly, "If we leave now, won't you regret it?" Shengguan Jing shook his head. "It was my mistake that caused this place to exist. After 1,000 years, I've let go of all my unwillingness." He was a little emotional, but he was not sad. The Long Yuan sword has already recognized you as its new master. Being able to reappear in the world can be considered as making up for the last regret in my heart. Chu Liwei nodded. At the same time she was very moved. Everything here actually represented the glory and loss that the great ancestor once had. Now that he could let it go so easily, not everyone had such a state of mind. As expected of the existence who single-handedly created the entire Tianling dynasty. Just as Chu Liwei was about to leave, a wave of fluctuations suddenly came from afar. Something was flying towards them. Chu Liwei looked over and was slightly stunned. "What is that?" Her voice stopped abruptly, and a trace of shock gradually climbed to the corners of her eyes. "That seems to be half a corpse. And it looks very familiar." Chu Liwei pointed at the lustrous corpse that was flying towards her, her fingers trembling slightly. "Taizu, that's the remaining half of the great phoenix dragon's corpse?" Shengguan Jing blinked. It seems to be. It should be because you put away the Long Yuan sword. It lost its suppression and sensed the aura of the other half of the corpse, so it came over by itself." The corner of Chu Liue's mouth twitched slightly. "It seems to be." "What do you mean it seems to be?" "The first half was placed in her heavenly square cauldron. There was no doubt about it. Also, what was the meaning of coming over by itself?" Chu Liwei tried to make her voice sound calmer. "You didn't tell me before that the remaining half of the corpse was over there, Didn't I tell you?" Taizu asked and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. "Looks like I'm really old." Chu Liwei, after all, he was her ancestor. What else could she say? Chu Liwei threw out the heavenly square cauldron in resignation. Shengguan Jing glanced at her expression and felt a little guilty. He chuckled. "Oh, since we're leaving, you can take away everything in the hall." He was referring to the shocking number of treasures. Without waiting for Chu Liwei to say anything, he waved his sleeve, and a huge crack appeared in the sinkhole. Then countless treasures surged up. "Girl, quick. The hilt of the Long Yuan sword is a storage space and it can store all of these," Shengguan Jing urged. Chu Liwei. "You even specially refined a Qingkuan sword hilt back then?" Shengguan Jing nodded and urged her. Chu Liwei had no choice but to obediently put those things into the hilt of the Long Yuan sword. At this moment, the remaining half of the corpse had already arrived in front of the heavenly square cauldron. Shengguan Jing suddenly said, "Oh, right. Once the Great Phoenix Dragon's corpse is gathered, the Great Phoenix Dragon race will immediately sense it. You should know this, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 531. Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. What? When Sheng Guanjing saw her reaction, he immediately rubbed his nose guiltily. That is, the Great Phoenix Dragon clan is an ancient divine beast. If they sense the aura of this corpse, they will chase after it no matter how far away they are. Chu Luiyue had an ominous premonition. They won't think that I did it, right? Of course. This Great Phoenix Dragon has been dead for more than 1,000 years. They can find out about this. However, Sheng Guanjing paused and his voice was a little weak. However, it did die under the Long Yuan sword back then. Now, you are the owner of the Long Yuan sword. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched violently. In other words, this Great Phoenix Dragon's corpse would most likely bring her great trouble. If it was ordinary trouble it would be fine, but it was the Great Phoenix Dragon clan. Once they came looking for her, wouldn't she have to take responsibility for this? At that time she would only have a dead end. Without another word, Chu Luiyue immediately turned around and raised her hand to take back the heavenly square cauldron. She didn't want the remaining half, alright? However, at this moment, the half of the corpse in the heavenly square cauldron seemed to have sensed the aura of the other half and began to float outside. Chu Luiyue hurriedly suppressed it with the transparent karmic fire. Back then, I split the Long Yuan sword into two and it took me a lot of effort to separate and nail the corpse. But now that they are so close, it's useless. Sheng Guanjing met Chu Luiyue's resentful eyes and tactfully retracted the remaining half of his sentence. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and simply put the corpse into the heavenly square cauldron. The two halves of the corpse were reconnected. The transparent karmic fire instantly covered it. Only then did the fluctuation calm down. The legendary three-eyed eagle also flew back. A voice sounded in Chu Luiyue's heart. The heavenly square cauldron is not an ordinary item. As long as there are no accidents, it can completely conceal the aura of the Great Phoenix Dragon's corpse. Even if they sensed the commotion just now, they might not be able to find you. Only then did Chu Luiyue calm down. Since it had already happened, he might as well accept it. Moreover, with this complete corpse, he might be able to help the legendary three-eyed eagle reconstruct its physical body. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and put away the heavenly square cauldron. She looked at Taizu faintly. Great ancestor, you haven't forgotten anything else, have you? Sheng Guanjing had dominated the world all his life, and thousands of people bowed to him. He had never thought that he would be so embarrassed and guilty in front of a teenage girl. He coughed heavily. No more. That's right, I'll help you store the things on the other side into the Long Yuan sword. These will all be yours in the future. You can spend it however you want. Is that okay? Chu Luiyue looked at Taizu's careful expression and finally couldn't help but laugh. Before this, she had never thought that Taizu, who only existed in legends and books, would actually be so clumsy and sincere to make her happy. Originally, she wasn't really angry in her heart. Now that she saw Taizu's reaction, her heart softened even more. Seeing Chu Luiyue smile, Sheng Guanjing finally heaved a sigh of relief. For some reason this girl seemed to be born to suppress him. He liked her very much at first sight. When he saw that she was a little unhappy, he also felt sad. Now that he saw her eyebrows relax, he felt at ease. Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something and asked, By the way, Taizu, I'll take this Long Yuan sword away. After I leave, what will your descendants do if they find out? If Sheng Guanwan knew about this, she would probably want to cut her into pieces. Now that her identity had yet to be revealed, it would be inappropriate for her to be exposed. Sheng Guanjing thought for a moment and knew Chu Luiyue's concerns. He said, If you don't want anyone to know, you can leave a sword aura here. Although the heavenly Tao in this minor kiliacosm had already dissipated, it could still last for a few years. Ordinary people wouldn't notice this change. Chu Luiyue smiled until her eyes turned into crescents. Thank you, Taizu. As she spoke, she willed and two sword auras flew out. They flew in two directions. Soon, two gigantic dragon abyss swords appeared in the chaotic world. At a glance, there was really no difference from before. Only she and Taizu knew the secret of this minor kiliacosm. Even if Sheng Guanwan and the others came in and saw this scene, they wouldn't have any doubts. Sheng Guanjing looked at her in a daze. Chu Luiyue touched her face. Taizu, is there something wrong with me? Sheng Guanjing came back to his senses and shook his head. Nothing. That smile just now, her eyes and brows did look a little familiar. Xuanji Square. After Ning Jiaojiao was eliminated, There were only 5 names left on the black jade board. It was already evening, but there were still many people waiting in the square. Ning Jiaojiao has already appeared today. There shouldn't be anyone else eliminated, right? Most likely. However, this competition is about to end. Let's wait a little longer. They had waited for a few days. How could they miss this last bit of time? Suddenly, a figure rushed out of the teleportation array. She fell to the ground in a sorry state. The crowd was in an uproar. Most people didn't have much hope and thought that someone might be eliminated tomorrow. They didn't expect someone to come out at this time. Who is that? It's another woman. A woman? Is it Chu Liyue? Many people rushed to look at the woman on the ground. Her situation was actually worse than Ning Jiaojiao's. Her body was covered in wounds and there was a clear bloody hole on her back. It was obviously pierced through by a sword. She looked like she was on the verge of death, as if she would stop breathing at any time. At this moment, a name slowly disappeared from the black jade board. It's Yang Qin. That woman is Yang Qin. The others from Purple Shao Sword Sect have already been eliminated. Only this person from outside Heaven's Canopy is left. I didn't expect her to make it to the 5th place. Jiske, I wonder who was so ruthless. If the wound was a little more to the side, it would have been her heart. It's a competition after all, everyone was discussing. Elder Duanmu Chun went forward to check on Yang Qin. Seeing that she was indeed in a semi-conscious state, he sent people to carry her away. Yang Qin could hear the voices around her, but she couldn't open her eyes. Her throat was dry and painful and she couldn't say a word. Long Yuan sword. That person? Someone else is coming out. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed. 2 figures were sent out one after the other. The entire square was in an uproar. 2 people were eliminated at once. Yuan Jinghong put down her arms in shock. Those 2 are both men. This meant that there were only 2 people left in the Tianling God realm. Chu Liyue was one of them. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 532. She was only 1 step away from first place. Previously he thought that Jian Fengqi was crazy to bet on Chu Liyue. Who would have thought that the tables would turn in the blink of an eye? Amidst the commotion, only the group of people at the gambling table fell into dead silence. These people were eliminated one after another, and they didn't even have time to react. However, right after that, there was another fluctuation from the teleportation array. Everyone in the square quietened down instantly and looked over. The winner was about to be revealed. Under countless gazes, a figure broke out. It was a young man. The afterglow shone on his soft, short, golden hair, reflecting a faint glow. Compared to the previous few people, his condition was much better. Other than some scattered bloodstains on his clothes, he didn't seem to be injured. He stood there and surveyed his surroundings. His cold and fair face was filled with indifference. His name slowly disappeared from the black jade board. The huge square was dead silent. Chang Wanzhou. That's Chang Wanzhou. It was unknown who was the first to break the dead silence. Like a spark falling into a pot of oil, it instantly ignited a huge fire. The whole square was in an uproar. Chang Wanzhou is second. Chu Liyue is the only one left in the Tianling God realm. She's first? She's actually first? How is this possible? Stage 3 warrior? Is she really just a stage 3 warrior? Faced with this sudden result, the crowd didn't have time to think about why these people were eliminated one after another at the last minute. There was only one thought left in their minds. As the lowest level participant among the participants, Chu Liyue actually got first place in the Wanzheng competition. Yuan Jinghong was dumbfounded as he stiffly turned to look at Jian Fengqi. That girl. She's really first? Jian Fengqi closed his fan and hit him with a look of disdain. Don't show such a useless expression. I won't be friends with such an ignorant person. Yuan Jinghong swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He was the young master of the Yuan family and had seen the world. Under normal circumstances he would have reacted this way. But, Chu Liyue got first place. Jian Fengqi, do you know what this means? Yuan Jinghong was so agitated that he wanted to grab Jian Fengqi's shoulder. Jian Fengqi moved his feet and easily dodged it. Hey, stay away from me. This was simply too embarrassing. He snorted softly, tidied up his sleeves and smiled leisurely. Of course, I know what this means. Do you think I've wasted my money? Yuan Jinghong's eyes were dull for a moment. Previously, he only cared about how impressive it was for Chu Liyue to come in first, so he actually forgot about this matter. After holding it in for a while, he finally spat out 2 words fiercely. I'm afraid that Jian Fengqi is really going to be rich this time. The odds of Chu Luiyue getting first place were so high. Plus, he bet so much money. Jian Fengqi glanced at him casually. Why are you so agitated? Didn't you bet with me too? Yuan Jinghong held his head in pain. I'm regretting that I only bet so little. You beast. Why didn't you persuade me to bet the money for my wife too? He felt like countless white crystal coins were flowing in front of his eyes, and he could only watch helplessly. Jian Fengqi sneered and ignored him. He turned to look at the stunned crowd in the casino. Because the shock was too great, they didn't seem to be able to react. Well, not exactly. Those whose faces were pale and their bodies were trembling should have figured it out by now. Knock knock. Jian Fengqi knocked on the table. I'll be waiting for you at Chunfeng restaurant. Oh, by the way, don't forget to bring my money. After saying that, he glanced at the man who was talking about him behind his back. Sensing Jian Fengqi's gaze, the man's legs went soft and he collapsed to the ground. He had almost thrown all his money into the casino. This time, it could be said that he had lost everything. Jian Fengqi laughed. Tisk, when fortune comes, it's really hard to stop it. It seems that I won't lose more than half of my fortune, but will make a lot of money instead? How am I going to spend all this money? What a headache. The man's face turned red, but he couldn't say a word. Jian Fengqi turned to leave, but he stopped and said, Oh, by the way, I'm much richer than you think, so that's not even half of my fortune. And after this it's even less. The man's eyes rolled back and he fainted from anger. Jian Fengqi sneered. You really can't take a beating. Everyone in the casino seemed to be mute, but their faces turned even uglier. Jian Fengqi's words were really asking for a beating, but with his status and strength, who would dare to provoke him? Not to mention now, they didn't even have the strength to feel sorry for their wallets. Jian Fengqi turned and walked towards the center of the square. He wasn't worried that these people would go back on their words. After so many years in West Hill, no one had ever dared to go back on their words in front of him. Yuan Jinghong saw this and quickly asked, Where are you going? Jian Fengqi didn't even turn his head. That girl helped me win so much money, I have to go and thank her. He didn't care about the Wanzheng competition at first, but now, it was a different story. Chu Luiyue's status had risen by at least 2 levels. Although Yuan Jinghong was still suffering from angina, she was also very curious about Chu Luiyue and immediately followed him. The two of them were in a relatively remote location, but after walking for a distance, they quickly had a clear view of the entire square. Jian Fengqi looked at the octagonal teleportation array and narrowed his eyes. Chapter 533. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her black hair was tied up simply. There was a faint smile on her face without any makeup, and she was devastatingly beautiful. If it wasn't Chu Luiyue, who else could it be? The warm afterglow fell on her body, her face, and her eyes were bright and resplendent. For a moment, many people were stunned. Who would have thought that such a slender and weak-looking woman would actually win first place in the Wanzheng competition? As soon as Chu Luiyue came out, she felt all kinds of gazes looking at her from all directions. She blinked her eyes and calmly glanced around. Only then did she realize what was going on. It seems like it's because I'm the last one to come out? But there doesn't seem to be such a big reaction, right? Chang Wanzhou walked over. When Chu Luiyue saw him, the corners of her lips curled up subconsciously. You didn't? I was late. Chang Wanzhou spoke stiffly, but his expression was a little tense. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before she understood what he meant. Is he blaming himself for finding her too late? You're not late. Chu Luiyue shook her head firmly. The Tianling God Realm was so big. Chang Wanzhou must have spent a lot of effort to find her. Moreover, although she had stayed in the crater for a long time, she actually knew that Chang Wanzhou had been waiting for her outside. Even until the end he had been fighting for her. Chu Luiyue felt that Chang Wanzhou had done enough. She didn't expect him to think that he was too late. Thank you, little Zhou. Chu Luiyue smiled at him and said softly. Chang Wanzhou suddenly trembled and a look of shock flashed across his eyes. He looked at Chu Luiyue as if he wanted to see through her, but also as if he was looking at someone else through her. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. What's wrong? You don't like me calling you that? Chang Wanzhou clenched his fists tightly. That's what she calls me too. Chu Luiyue immediately guessed who he was talking about. There was only one person who could make him care so much. If you really mind, I won't call you that in the future. After this incident, Chu Luiyue felt that his relationship with Chang Wanzhou had become closer, so he thought of calling him that. However, she was not in the mood to fight for anything. Especially, with a person who might not even be alive. Chang Wanzhou didn't say anything for a while. Finally he shook his head. It's fine. She won't mind. If she didn't mind, then he wouldn't mind either. Chu Luiyue knew exactly what he was thinking. Okay, then I'll call you Xiao Zhou from now on. You can also call me by my name. Chang Wanzhou nodded hesitantly, but didn't say anything. Chu Luiyue did not force him. After a long time this child would naturally come around. Chu Luiyue. Suddenly a familiar voice came from behind him. Chu Luiyue turned around. Elder Duanmu. Elder Duanmu Chun looked at her with a complicated expression. In the end he gave her a thumbs up. Congratulations. You're much more powerful than we imagined. You deserve to be number one. Chu Luiyue also laughed. Elder Duanmu, you flatter me. Liu was just a little lucky. Elder Duanmu Chun shook his head and stroked his beard. You don't have to be too humble. So many people have been defeated by you. That's enough to explain the problem. At first they didn't dare to believe it, but the truth was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. This Chu Luiyue indeed had endless potential. Who knows what kind of underhanded methods she used. Elder Qiushi, who was at the side, suddenly said in a strange tone. Chu Luiyue's smile didn't change. She pretended not to hear it. Anyway, the results were out. She was already the biggest winner. No matter what others said, it was useless. Why should she care? Elder Duanmu Chun looked at Elder Qiushi disapprovingly. Even if he didn't like Chu Luiyue, he shouldn't have said that in front of so many people. It was really too petty. However, when he saw Chu Luiyue's nonchalant expression, Elder Qiushi was even angrier. He couldn't help but raise his voice. Chu Luiyue, didn't you hear what I said? This voice attracted many people's attention. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. Countless pairs of eyes moved back and forth between Chu Luiyue and Elder Qiushi. Elder Qiushi. Was he planning to find trouble with Chu Luiyue? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. Elder Qiushi, the competition is over. What do you want me to say? Elder Qiushi frowned. Naturally, I want you to talk about how you got first place. You're the one with the lowest cultivation level among the contestants. If you didn't use any tricks, how could you win against so many people and become first place? Actually, this was what many people wanted to know. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. I don't understand what Elder Qiushi is saying. I'm indeed the one with the lowest cultivation level here, but I'm not the weakest here. I believe you were already very clear about this during the qualifiers, weren't you? Elder Qiushi's expression changed. Chu Luiyue had beaten Zhao Yunji until she couldn't retaliate. As a result, Zhao Yunji's injuries hadn't healed yet. The strength that Chu Luiyue displayed in this competition was indeed not weak. Moreover, I don't know why the others were eliminated before me. Don't tell me you want me to ask them one by one how they were inferior to me? That is really difficult for me. Chu Luiyue said with a troubled expression. This time, Elder Qiushi wasn't the only one with an ugly expression. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm asking you to explain your situation clearly. What does it have to do with others? Elder Qiushi hurriedly reprimanded him. Chu Luiyue was clearly deliberately provoking a fight. There were still many contestants around as well as the forces behind them. Wasn't Chu Luiyue making things difficult for him by saying this? Elder Qiushi, I think you seem to have overlooked something. The place we're going to is the Tianling God Realm. That's the place where the Taizu of the Tianling dynasty passed away. It's sacred and honorable. Not to mention me, even the others wouldn't dare to use any dirty tricks there. Are you suspecting that there's a problem with the Tianling God Realm or the Taizu? The corners of Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly as if he was talking about an ordinary matter. However, Elder Qiushi's heart shook violently, and the wrinkles on his old face also trembled. He couldn't bear this accusation. You don't talk nonsense. When did I mean that? Chu Luiyue looked at him with a half-smile. Only then did Elder Qiushi realize that he wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. After all, he did say that he suspected Chu Luiyue just now. He originally just wanted to vent his anger, but he didn't expect Chu Luiyue to be so sharp-tongued. At the side, Elder Duanmu Chun couldn't stand it anymore and finally spoke up. Chu Luiyue, Elder Qiushi didn't mean that. He's just shocked that you got first place. Don't take it to heart. With that, he took a step forward and shouted in a deep voice. I announce, the person who got first place in this Wanzheng competition is Chu Luiyue. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 534. His deep voice was full of vigor, and it instantly reverberated throughout the entire square. It landed clearly in everyone's ears. Chu Luiyue smiled and didn't harp on Elder Qiuxi's mistake. She looked up at the black jade board floating in midair. There was only one name left on it. Chu Luiyue. The competition has ended. Everyone can go back and rest today. Tomorrow morning, all the major sects in Xiling City will send people to wait for everyone in Xanli Garden. Those who haven't decided which sect to join can go back and think about it today. The corresponding rewards will also be given out tomorrow. Elder Duanmu Chun's words made many people react. That's right. There's such a thing. Before the competition started, it was said that those who participated in the Wanzheng competition had the right to choose a sect. Now that the competition had ended, it was indeed their turn. The square quickly became noisy as people started to guess which sect these people would choose. Especially those with the best rankings, they would definitely be the targets of all the major sections. The few elders then kept the teleportation array. Chu Luiyue took a look and retracted her gaze. The changes in the Tianling God realm obviously didn't attract their attention. Little Zhou, let's go too. Chu Luiyue said and walked down the stage. Chang Wanzhou followed behind obediently. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. What's going on? Why do the first and second place seem to have a good relationship? Previously, when Chu Luiyue left with Chang Wanzhou, it didn't attract much attention. But now that everyone's attention was on them, it was very surprising. These two didn't seem to know each other before. Why are they suddenly so close? And it seems like Chang Wanzhou listens to Chu Luiyue very much? Doesn't this mean that the two of them will choose the same sect? I wonder which sect is so lucky to get these two top geniuses at once. Hey, didn't you guys realize that the two of them seem to have broken through in the Tianling God realm? Seems like it's true. Chang Wanzhou was a rank 6 warrior. Chu Luiyue also broke through to the 4th order. Everyone else who went in came out with serious injuries, but not only were these two not injured, they even made a breakthrough. Comparisons are odious. Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou heard the discussions around them clearly, but they didn't take it to heart. Chu Luiyue felt a familiar gaze land on her, and she looked up. It was Jian Fengqi. Why was he here? Ever since Jian Fengqi sent her to Mu Mansion, it was as if he had disappeared without a trace. Chu Luiyue didn't need to think to know what he was going to do. It was really strange that he would come here. Jian Fengqi waved the bone fan in his hand at Chu Luiyue and smiled proudly. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment, then walked towards him. Greetings, young Master Jian. Chu Luiyue bowed politely. Chapter 535. Yuan Jinghong seemed to have misunderstood something. Young Master Yuan, Chu Luiyue was about to explain when she heard a voice from the side. Miss Chu. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was Duan Ziyu. During the competition, Duan Ziyu had been waiting here and didn't leave at all. After the results were out, he was shocked for a long time and came later. I'm here to bring you back. Yuan Jinghong was stunned. Duan Ziyu? Why are you here? Duan Ziyu was Mu Qinghe's confidant. They had met many times and naturally knew each other. He's here to bring Chu Luiyue back? Back where? Duan Ziyu said calmly. Of course I'm waiting for you. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Luiyue again. Lieutenant is in the residence now. If he knows that you got first place, he'll be very happy. Chu Luiyue thought to herself that Mu Qinghe wouldn't be happy or unhappy because of this. He had always been reserved and rarely wasted time and energy on unrelated people or things. Even if he cared, it should be because this result involved a deeper problem. Even though she hadn't gotten to the bottom of it yet, Mu Qinghe clearly knew some inside information. But she obviously wouldn't say this out loud. She just smiled faintly. Luckily, I didn't disappoint him. Chu Luiyue then bade farewell to Jian Fengqi and Duan Ziyu. Just as she turned around before she could leave, Yuan Jinghong shouted. Wait. Chu Luiyue looked back. Young Master Yuan, is there anything else? Yuan Jinghong looked at her calm and composed expression and felt that something was wrong. Why you want to follow Duan Ziyu back to the Mu residence? Why Yuan Fengqi? Yuan Jinghong cried out in pain and looked at Jian Fengqi angrily. He was speaking up for me. Why did he start a fight? Jian Fengqi couldn't be bothered to look at his stupid face. He couldn't help but regret bringing him along. There's nothing else. You guys can leave first. Jian Fengqi said and turned to leave. Yuan Jinghong quickly followed. What's wrong with you? Why did Chu Luiyue leave with Duan Ziyu? He was Mu Qinghe's man. Isn't this the same as openly snatching someone from you? Jian Fengqi said lazily, first, she's not one of my people. Secondly, she can go wherever she wants. It has nothing to do with me. Yuan Jinghong was heartbroken. Mu Qinghe has always been at odds with you. Now that she's bullying you, you don't care at all? Jian Fengqi stared at him. What are you doing? Yuan Jinghong was a little nervous. Jian Fengqi let out a long sigh and walked forward. What was wrong with him? Why was he friends with Yuan Jinghong? Yuan Jinghong looked at the two of them hesitantly. In the end he still followed Jian Fengqi. What did you mean just now? Make yourself clear. In fact, Chu Luiyue and Jian Fengqi didn't take this matter to heart. But they didn't know that this scene was seen by everyone else. Jian Fengqi and Mu Qinghe were fighting again? And it was because of a woman? West Hill was going to be lively. At this time, Chu Luiyue had no idea what kind of rumors would spread. She took Chang Wanzhou and followed Duan Ziyu back to the Mu residence. But in her heart, she was thinking about something else. She couldn't stay in the Mu residence anymore. Staying in the Mu residence had its benefits. At the very least, it was very safe. In West Hill City, almost no one would be bold enough to break into the Mu residence. But it was very inconvenient for her to stay in the Mu residence. If it were ordinary cultivation and medicine refinement, it would be fine. But there were too many things to do. If she continued to stay in the Mu residence, there would be too many concerns. She had to find another place. Fortunately, she had a lot of money now, so she had a lot of choices. Tianling Palace. Clear Wind Palace. This was the residence of the Tianling dynasty's emperor, Shang Guanyu. Since he fell into a coma more than a year ago, he had been recuperating here. Clear Wind Palace was heavily guarded. Now, only the third princess, Shangguan could enter and leave this place freely. As for the others, even the royal family, if they wanted to enter this place, they had to go through strict checks. In other words, they had to get Shangguan personal order. At this time, night was about to fall. A tall figure walked out of Clear Wind Palace. The light from the lanterns that had just been lit shone on his face. It was an elegant and handsome face. It was Jiang Yuqing. It was already early winter. Perhaps it was because of the cold at night, but his face looked a little cold. Sun Qi, who was waiting outside the palace, quickly went up to him. Eldest young master. When Jiang Yuqing saw his strange expression, he asked, "Why? What's wrong?" Sun Qi paused for a moment and said softly, "Eldest young master, the Wanzheng competition is over." Jiang Yuqing frowned slightly. So sudden? He thought it would take another 2 or 3 days. Today he came to visit the emperor and stayed inside for a long time. He didn't expect this to happen as soon as he came out. Sun Qi explained, "Yes. The last few people came out almost one after another, and the winner was quickly decided." Jiang Yuqing asked, "What's the result?" Sun Qi wanted to say something but hesitated. Jiang Yuqing frowned even more. Sun Qi bent down and said softly, "Chu Liwei got first place." Jiang Yuqing was stunned for a moment before he subconsciously said, "How is that possible?" As soon as he said that, he knew that his words were meaningless. Sun Qi couldn't be lying. Chu Liwei really defeated all the competitors and became first place. Her Yuan meridian is clearly, Jiang Yuqing muttered softly, but he quickly swallowed the rest of his words. But the doubts in his heart were even stronger. It shouldn't be. Chu Liu's talent was not bad, but she only had an intermediate Daijing Yuan meridian. She was the worst among the remaining people. Everyone else could be first, but she was the least likely. But, does the third princess know about this? He asked. Sun Qi said, she should know. The competition ended in the afternoon. He had been waiting here for Jiang Yuqing for a long time. There was no reason that the third princess didn't know. Jiang Yuqing thought about it and agreed. Shangguan was very concerned about this matter. Although she didn't leave the palace, she had already sent people in private. She should know about what happened in Xuanji Square. Jiang Yuqing tidied up his clothes and walked forward. Sun Qi followed behind silently. The two of them quickly left Qingfeng Hall. However, he didn't walk far before a palace maid walked towards him. Seeing that palace maid, Jiang Yuqing's eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. The palace maid walked directly in front of Jiang Yuqing and curtsied, "Prince consort, the third princess invites you." Although it was invite, it was obviously impossible to refuse. Jiang Yuqing said, "Lead the way." "Yes. Prince consort, please." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 536. When Jiang Yuqing arrived at Huayang Palace, Shangguan was waiting for him. "Yuqing, you're here." Once Shangguan saw him, she immediately walked forward happily and planned to directly lean into his embrace. Jiang Yuqing silently took a step back. "Greetings, third princess." Shangguan missed him and pouted unhappily. "What are you doing?" Jiang Yuqing said, "My marriage hasn't been finalized yet. The princess and I are not yet married, so we shouldn't meet in private at this time. Everything still needs to follow the etiquette of the palace." Sheng Wanwan chuckled and reached out to pull his arm. "Yuqing, this is Huayang Palace and there are no outsiders. You don't have to do this. Besides, even if I want to do something, will anyone dare to stop me? Now that the entire palace is under my control, what do I have to be afraid of?" This time, Jiang Yuqing didn't push her hand away and only glanced at the palace maid beside her. "Chani, you can leave first," Sheng Wanwan said. "Yes." That palace maid lowered her head and left respectfully. Jiang Yuqing held Sheng Wanwan's wrist. "Let's talk inside. Sun Qi, guard outside." Sun Qi hurriedly bowed. "Yes." Jiang Yuqing brought Sheng Wanwan into the room and carefully checked all the doors and windows. Sheng Wanwan found it very funny and nonchalantly said, "Yuqing, you're too cautious. Are you suspecting that my Huayang Palace isn't safe enough?" After confirming that there were no abnormalities around, Jiang Yuqing turned around, sat down on the chair and patiently said, "It's always right to be more careful. I'm doing all this for you." When Sheng Wanwan heard this, her expression indeed became much better as she intimately leaned over. However, Jiang Yuqing didn't have such thoughts. "I went to see His Majesty today. His Majesty still doesn't seem to show any signs of waking up. None of the methods he used seemed to work." At the mention of this, Sheng Wanwan lost interest. She sat down beside him and snorted. "Who asked you to be so ruthless back then? Now all we can do is wait." After all, there were only a few trustworthy celestial physicians. Jiang Yuqing's eyes flashed with coldness. Back then he had asked Sheng Wanwan to handle this matter. She had not done a good job, but now she was pushing all the blame onto him. But there was no point in arguing with her now. Besides, they had more important things to discuss. "Let's not talk about this anymore. Are you looking for me so late at night because of the Wanzheng competition?" Jiang Yuqing went straight to the point. Sheng Wanwan's eyes lit up instantly. Her face was full of excitement and joy. "That's right. Sun Qi should have already told you about the news from the Wanzheng competition, right? That Chu something who won first place, Chu Luiyue," Jiang Yuqing continued. Yes, that's the name. I heard that it's a girl in her teens. I think it was Mu Qinghe who brought her back, right?" Jiang Yuqing glanced at her and felt unhappy for some reason. However, he didn't show it on his face. He nodded and said, "She's only a stage 3 warrior now. It's indeed quite surprising that she could win first place. However, what? Yuqing, don't you know that she has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior?" Sheng Wanwan interrupted him. Jiang Yuqing was stunned. The smile on Sheng Wanwan's face became more secretive and excited. "And she broke through in the Tianling God realm. What do you think this means?" "It means that she's very compatible with the Tianling God realm." Jiang Yuqing frowned. "But her Yuan meridian is only at the intermediate level. It can't be compared to those higher level ones? How can it not be compared?" Sheng Wanwan stood up, and her face was filled with unconcealable excitement and ecstasy. "She's at the intermediate level of the Daijing Yuan meridian, but she performed better than the higher level ones. This shows that her Yuan meridian, it's still too early to say this. We have to take it step by step. Only then can we be safe, right?" Jiang Yuqing didn't want to hear what she was going to say next, so he suddenly said, "Before His Majesty wakes up, we can't act rashly." Sheng Wanwan was stunned. She sized him up a few times, and her eyes were filled with suspicion. "Yuqing, what's wrong with you today? I just feel that everything is progressing too smoothly, so I'm very happy." "Aren't you happy for me?" Jiang Yuqing gently said, "Why would I be? Haven't I waited with you for so long? This matter concerns your future, so of course I care about it the most." Sheng Wanwan knitted her brows slightly. "But you look as if, my heart aches when I think of how much you'll have to suffer in the future." Jiang Yuqing stood up, held her hand and hugged her. Sheng Wanwan grumbled. "But I can't wait anymore. For the past year, I've been living in fear every day, afraid that someone will discover that my Yuan meridian is damaged. I've become a cripple. If I don't recover before the imperial court, everything will be over. Compared to losing everything, what's this bit of suffering?" Jiang Yuqing gently patted her back. "Don't worry. It'll definitely be fine. Let's take it step by step. I guarantee that there won't be any problems, okay? If we alert the enemy now, all our efforts will go to waste, right?" Sheng Wanwan gradually calmed down and looked up at him. "Then what do you think we should do?" Jiang Yuqing smiled. "Naturally, we'll follow the previous plan. Tomorrow at Xanli Garden, all the major sects will send people, and the contestants will also be there. After you go, you just need to sit there quietly and do what you should do as the third princess. After all, as long as we keep them in Wiling, we won't have to worry about them suddenly disappearing. Sheng Guanwan was quickly convinced by Jiang Yuqing. Alright then. I also want to see what those people are like, especially that Chu Liyue? Jiang Yuqing nodded in agreement, but a trace of darkness flashed past his eyes. Mu Manor. Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou followed Duan Ziyu to the front hall. Mu Qinghe was sitting there with his eyes closed. It was rare for him to be free. When he heard movement, he opened his eyes. Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou bowed. Mu Qinghe's gaze moved between her and Chang Wanzhou. After a while he spoke. I haven't congratulated the two of you for getting the best results in the Wanzheng competition. Chu Liyue was naturally humble again. Then she mentioned that she wanted to move out. Mu Qinghe looked at her. What? Did the people from Mu Manor not serve you well? Duan Ziyu immediately broke out in cold sweat. Chu Liyue shook her head and explained, the people from Mu Manor treat me and Little Zhou very well. I'm also very grateful that Vice Admiral Mu has been helping me so much. But since I'm already in Wiling, I can't stay in Mu Manor forever. I'm already very sorry for disturbing you during this period of time. So, I think, it's better to move out and find another place to live. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 537. Chu Liyue's tone was sincere, her expression was serious, and her eyes were filled with determination. Mu Qinghe glanced at her and knew that she was serious. He tapped the table with his finger. You don't have any relatives or friends in West Hill, and you don't even know many people. Isn't it convenient to live in the Mu residence? Moreover, with the Mu residence's support, you can save a lot of trouble. Chu Liyue quickly said, Vice Admiral Mu, I just feel that as an outsider living here with a small boat, I'm causing trouble for you. Although the Mu residence is not an aristocratic family, it's more than enough to support the two of you. At this point, Mu Qinghe looked at Chu Liyue meaningfully. Chu Liyue coughed awkwardly. He was still brooding over the 90,000 white crystal coins that she had spent. Liu appreciates Vice Admiral Mu's kindness. But I owe Vice Admiral Mu enough, and I really don't want to continue disturbing you. Although Chu Liyue's words were tactful, everyone present could tell that she would not change her mind. Mu Qinghe lowered his eyes and fell into deep thought. Chu Liyue also quieted down and waited for his reply. The entire hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. After a while, Mu Qinghe stood up. Since you've already thought it through, I won't stop you. But the moment you leave the Mu residence, all the benefits will be taken back. He took 2 steps and paused. I'll leave you 10,000 white crystal coins for you to use during this period of time. Chu Liyue was very surprised. She didn't expect that Mu Qinghe would be willing to help her even when she was about to leave. She quickly said, Thank you for your kindness, Vice Admiral Mu. But I can't accept this money. Mu Qinghe looked at her suspiciously. With her previous spending speed, 10,000 white crystal coins wouldn't even be enough to support her for a few days. She actually didn't want it? Were they planning to fight the northwest wind? Chu Liyue understood what he meant and her eyes curved. Don't worry, young Master Jian bet on me winning first place and won quite a bit of money. He has already agreed to share a portion of it with me. Therefore, I can still hold on for a long time. Mu Qinghe's face turned cold for a moment, but it quickly disappeared. He didn't say anything and left. Chu Liyue looked at his back and frowned slightly. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Mu Qinghe seemed a little unhappy. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Mu Qinghe was too busy with his own affairs. How could he care about such a small matter as where she lived? She looked at Duan Ziyu. It's getting late today. Xiao Zhou and I will stay here for the last night. I'll leave tomorrow. What else could Duan Ziyu say? The deputy general made it clear that he didn't want her to find another place to live. Otherwise he wouldn't have said those words. However, Chu Liyue refused so straightforwardly. She didn't know if she really didn't understand or if she pretended not to understand. Please go ahead. After Duan Ziyu finished speaking, he also left. Chu Liyue returned to the small courtyard with Chang Wanzhou. You've been working hard for the past few days. Have a good rest today. You still have to go to Xanli Garden tomorrow. Chu Liyue said and walked towards her room. When she was about to enter the door, Chang Wanzhou, who was standing behind her, suddenly said, He must have offended you. Chu Liyue looked back at him in surprise. Xiao Zhou, what did you say? Chang Wanzhou stared at her. Otherwise he wouldn't be so guilty towards you. The expression on Chu Liyue's face froze for a moment. After a moment, the corners of her lips curled up slightly as if she was smiling. However, her eyes were cold and bitter, and it disappeared in an instant. "You're wrong. That's not towards me. Besides, it's not guilt." With that, she turned around and entered the room. Chang Wanzhou stood there for a long time. He had always been very sensitive to people's emotions. But why did she say that? Am I really wrong? After pondering for a long time, Chang Wanzhou couldn't come to a conclusion. He simply put it aside and returned to his room. The night passed without a word. The next morning, after Chu Liyue woke up and packed up, she wanted to say goodbye to Mu Qinghe. However, Duan Ziyu said that he had already left the residence, so she left with Chang Wanzhou. Although the Wanzheng competition had ended, Shiling City was still very lively. The two of them were recognized by many people as they walked on the streets. It couldn't be helped. The two of them were too special in terms of appearance and temperament. They could be recognized at a glance in the crowd. However, these people only looked at them, but no one dared to take the initiative to approach them. Wherever the two of them passed, the crowd sensibly made way. As they got closer and closer to Xianli Garden, the number of people around them decreased. When they reached the end of the street, Chu Liyue immediately saw that there were already black cavalry on guard. The lineup this time was clearly much more powerful than before. It was obvious that the people who were coming today were of high status. Chu Liyue thought for a moment and walked forward with Chang Wanzhou. The people guarding the entrance of Xianli Garden were replaced by two royal elders. Chu Liyue was more certain of her prediction. She walked forward without batting an eyelid. The two elders recognized Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou, but they still checked them carefully before letting them in. A person who looked like a page boy walked forward. "The two of you please follow me." Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou nodded and followed. Chu Liyue asked, "May I know where we're going?" The page boy said, "Thousand View Garden." Chu Liyue was stunned and her footsteps slowed. Chang Wanzhou glanced at her. However, Chu Liyue quickly recovered. It was actually Thousand View Garden. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is in that direction. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice suddenly sounded. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 538. In Thousand View Garden? Are you sure? Chu Liyue asked in her heart. I'm sure. The legendary three-eyed eagle sounded very certain. If we get closer, I'll be able to accurately guess its location. Chu Liyue continued walking forward calmly with a slight frown. She had been very concerned about Thousand View Garden in the past, but she had never noticed anything strange after so many years. When did the purplish gold Buddha leaf appear there? Under the lead of the page boy, they walked through a winding corridor and passed by a rippling lake before finally arriving at Thousand View Garden. Through the simple and elegant moon-shaped gate, Chu Liyue could see that there were already many people in the courtyard. Please? The page boy stopped outside the gate. There was a strict hierarchy inside and the security was tight. He was only responsible for leading them here, but he wasn't qualified to enter. Thank you. Chu Liyue looked at the familiar scene before her, and her heart stirred. She couldn't be more familiar with every brick, stone, grass and tree here. She exhaled softly, straightened her back and walked in with a smile. The moment she walked in, the originally noisy courtyard quietened down instantly. Everyone looked over with different expressions on their faces. Chu Liyue quickly scanned the surroundings and immediately recognized many familiar faces. Even Yang Qin and the rest, who were severely injured previously, were here today. After all, it involved which sect they could enter in the future, so naturally no one dared to slack off. She didn't see any people from the various sects, so she guessed that they should be in the hall inside. And this place was obviously left for the young participants who participated in the Wanzheng competition. The atmosphere in the courtyard became a little strange. The participant with the lowest cultivation level had become the champion, which made the others somewhat unconvinced. However, they had all been to the Tianling God realm and had seen the situation inside. They were very clear that Chu Liyue definitely didn't win by luck. This made them even more upset. She was only 14 years old. Those who could participate in the Wanzheng competition were all geniuses with the Daijing Yuan Meridian. They were definitely the cream of the crop no matter where they were. This match had undoubtedly dealt a heavy blow to their confidence. Then he looked at Chu Liyue with mixed feelings. Chu Liyue completely ignored all of this and did not take it to heart at all. She casually found a spot and casually looked at the surrounding scenery. There was just the right amount of novelty in her eyes, but she was also very restrained and polite. No one could find any fault with her. So, you really don't want to get up? Suddenly, a sharp female voice came from not far away. The entire courtyard fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue followed everyone's gaze and saw two women arguing. The one who spoke was a woman in a purple dress. She looked to be in her early 20s and had an arrogant look on her face. Standing in front of her was a young girl who still had some baby fat on her face. She looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. She wore a green dress with a silver cauldron tattooed on her left chest. This was a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion. Her round face was flushed red, and her fists were clenched tightly. She looked like she was trying her best to endure it. "Miss, this was originally my position." The purple-clothed woman mocked. "Your spot? Is your name written on this spot?" The round-faced woman said word by word. "This is indeed a spot prepared for a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion. If you don't believe me, we can ask someone to see if that's the case." The purple-clothed woman raised her hand and put it to her ear. "What? Who did you say it was prepared for? The Chongshu Pavilion? That sect still exists? I thought it was disbanded a long time ago." The round-faced woman immediately widened her eyes and said angrily, "Miss, please be careful with your words." The purple-clothed woman glanced at her. "Who do you think you are? How dare you order me around?" The round-faced woman was clearly not good with words. She trembled in anger at the woman's arrogance, but she could not think of any rebuttal. "Don't you dare insult my sect. Otherwise don't blame me for being impolite." The purple-clothed woman covered her chest and mocked. "Oh, I'm so scared. The remnants of the Chongshu Pavilion are threatening me." A burst of laughter came from the crowd. A young man standing beside the purple-clothed woman took a step forward and said to the round-faced woman, "Miss, I'm sorry. My junior sister has always been willful. If her words offend you, please don't take it to heart. This is her first time in Thousand View Garden, so it's inevitable that she's curious. Why don't you give this spot to her?" Chu Luiyue noticed that there were 9 stars tattooed on the left side of his chest, forming a line. He was clearly a disciple of the 9-Star Alliance. The round-faced woman took a deep breath and said word by word, "The seats here are specially arranged for the disciples of the 4 major sections. They don't belong to you. Moreover, there are so many people sitting here. Why did you choose me?" None of the people from the other 3 major sects dared to provoke them from the beginning to the end. They were here for her on purpose. The young man sneered with a hint of contempt. "Why is that? I believe everyone is very clear about it, right? I spoke politely to you just now because I wanted to leave some face for both of us. But since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for speaking rudely." The man pointed to the seat behind the round-faced woman and said, "Based on the current strength of the Chongshu Pavilion, do you have the right to sit here?" Everyone didn't say it on the surface, but in reality, everyone knew that the current Chongsu cabinet was just an empty shell. This is Xiling, where strength is respected. Since you don't have the strength, you deserve to be squeezed down by others. The purple-clothed woman beside him also had a smug expression. "Senior brother, there's no need to talk so much nonsense when dealing with people who don't have the strength but still have the cheek to occupy a seat. Just let them know how powerful we are." The 9-Star Alliance had long surpassed the Chongshu Pavilion. Naturally, this seat should be theirs. The round-faced woman felt as if her chest was blocked by something. She felt so uncomfortable that all the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. She was clamoring for a fight. However, her last shred of rationality still firmly nailed her to the ground. Before they came, the second elder had said that this Wanzheng competition was of great importance and that they must not cause trouble. Moreover, their Chongshu Pavilion was at the center of the storm and could easily be targeted. If they made a mistake, it would very likely lead to great trouble. That was why she had been restraining herself. But these people actually humiliated her sect. That purple-clothed woman wasn't even an official disciple of the 9-Star Alliance. How dare they be so arrogant? They were bullying their Chongshu Pavilion. The man raised 3 fingers. "I'll count to 3. Immediately give this seat to my junior sister. Otherwise what?" A clear and bright female voice suddenly sounded. "Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 539. The few of them turned around and saw that it was a beautiful woman dressed in red. It was Chu Luiyue. She had a smile on her face as if she was just asking casually. However, everyone could see that this dispute was just disciples fighting for a seat on the surface. In fact, it was the 9-Star Alliance challenging the position of the 4 major sects in the Chongshu Pavilion. Whoever interfered at this time would be involved in this dispute. Why did Chu Luiyue suddenly care about this all of a sudden? When the young man saw that it was Chu Luiyue, he restrained his arrogance. It was rumored that she had an extraordinary relationship with Jian Fengqi and Mu Qinghe. No matter which one of them it was, they were not people he could provoke. The ferocious expression on his face stiffened into a smile. Miss Chu, what do you mean? Chu Luiyue asked with a smile. Don't misunderstand. I'm just a little curious. Since this seat belongs to someone else, why are you fighting for it? Chu Luiyue's words were too straightforward, causing the man to choke. If I didn't remember wrongly, this lady seems to be someone your Jiuxing alliance brought over from outside Heaven's canopy. She shouldn't have entered your sect yet. Why are you calling each other senior brother and junior sister? This time, the purple-clothed woman's expression turned ugly. Wasn't he scolding her in public? Chu Luiyue looked at the round-faced woman and asked with a smile. I just heard that only the official disciples of the 4 major sects can sit in this seat, right? The round-faced woman didn't expect Chu Luiyue to suddenly help and nodded in a daze. That's right. These 4 major sects are the top existences in West Hill. They are Dragon Teeth Mountain, Soaring Cloud Sect, Purple Shao Sword Sect, and our Chongshu Pavilion. When we came in just now, the servant had already said that this seat was reserved for us. Although it was called a seat, it was actually a status. Chu Luiyue nodded and looked at the 2 people from the 9-Star Alliance. Since this seat is reserved for the 4 major sects, may I ask, the 9-Star Alliance? The 2 immediately became embarrassed. Wasn't Chu Luiyue asking the obvious? It's precisely because they're not now and want to replace Chongsu Cabinet that they're doing this on purpose. What were they supposed to say when she asked that? The purple-clothed woman was unconvinced. Chongshu Pavilion is no longer the Chongshu Pavilion of the past. Let's talk about her. His ranking in the Wanzheng competition was below mine. Just based on this point alone, she has no right to sit here. Chu Luiyue asked. What's your rank? The woman in purple raised her chin. 35. Chu Luiyue looked at the round-faced woman. What about you? The round-faced woman lowered her head in embarrassment. 41. Actually, the difference between the 2 of them wasn't that big. Furthermore, this round-faced woman was considered young among these people. It was already considered good that she could obtain this rank. The purple-clothed woman sneered. Although I've only been to West Hill for a short while, I know that there's a rule in West Hill: strength is respected. Now that my ranking is higher than hers and I'm stronger than her, why can't I sit here? The round-faced woman's face flushed red. Her lips trembled and tears welled up in her eyes. It was all because she was useless. If she had performed better in the Wanzheng competition, she wouldn't have been humiliated like this and implicated the reputation of her entire sect. What about me? Chu Luiyue said. The purple-clothed woman was suddenly stunned. What? Chu Luiyue smiled. I'm first. Am I more qualified to sit here than you? The purple-clothed woman seemed to be choked by something and stuttered. But you're not interested in this seat at all. Why are you deliberately making things difficult for us? Whether I'm interested or not is my business. You just have to answer my question. Chu Luiyue looked at her indifferently. You, the purple-clothed woman was enraged and her voice became sharp and piercing. Chu Luiyue, are you determined to stand up for Chongshu Pavilion today? You have to think carefully. You're going against the entire 9-Star Alliance. Chu Luiyue smiled. Isn't it just a seat? Do you have to make it sound so serious? But if you really want to put it that way, then you can say it's true. His nonchalant attitude made the woman even angrier. On impulse, she took a step forward and was immediately stopped by the man beside her. Junior sister. Chu Luiyue alone wasn't scary, but she had Jian Fengqi and Mu Qinghe behind her. Now the entire West Hill was rumored to be very fond of Chu Luiyue. No matter which one Chu Luiyue chose, her status and power in the future couldn't be underestimated. If they went against her, wouldn't they be looking for trouble for themselves? Senior brother. The woman was angry, but when she met the man's warning gaze, she finally swallowed the rest of her words and turned her head away unwillingly. The man said, Since Miss Chu wants this seat, then we won't fight with you. Miss Chu, please. With that, he pulled the purple-clothed woman to the other side. The round-faced woman looked at Chu Luiyue gratefully and hesitantly. Chu Luiyue looked at the round-faced woman, and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. You can continue to sit in this seat. But this is I'm not interested in this. I just don't like them. Don't take it to heart. Chu Luiyue patted her shoulder lightly. The round-faced woman looked at her in a daze. So, from the beginning to the end, Chu Luiyue really did it to help her? Ever since the incident at the Chongshu Pavilion, the people in the pavilion had been looked down on and ridiculed, and there were countless people who hit them when they were down. This was the first time that someone stood on their side in public and spoke up for them. And this person was Chu Luiyue, who they didn't know. Thank you, thank you. The round-faced woman was a little helpless. I don't know how to thank you. Chu Luiyue asked. What's your name? How old are you? The round-faced woman answered honestly. My name is Yi Ranran. I'll be 14 in a month. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. This woman looked to be 15 or 16 years old, but she was a few months younger than her. As if she could see Chu Luiyue's meaning, the round-faced woman's cheeks turned slightly red. I eat a lot, so I look stronger than ordinary women. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's clearly still a half-grown child. How badly does Chongsu Cabinet need people to send her out? It's okay. You're very talented. As long as you cultivate well, you'll be very powerful in the future. Chu Luiyue said seriously. Yi Ranran's eyes lit up. Pavilion Master said so too, but I always thought he was coaxing me, she said a little embarrassedly. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in her heart. It's true. Also, remember to return the favor if you're bullied in the future. Yi Ranran nodded vigorously. Just as he was about to ask more questions, he heard a voice. The sect master of the Purple Shao Sword sect has arrived. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. She gradually thought that Shangguan was very pitiful. Not to mention that she often helped her, many times she was particularly soft-hearted. It was this unnecessary and useless sympathy that caused her to lose her life. Looking at the current Shangguan, she was arrogant and in high spirits. Her eyes were filled with the arrogance and murderous fierceness of a person in a superior position. She didn't look like the past at all. She must have lived a very comfortable life in power for more than a year. That was why she became like this, right? Half a step behind her, there was a young man. Jiang Yuqing. He was wearing a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall figure. He didn't have any extra accessories on his body, but at a glance, he had a noble aura. Anyone who saw him would guess that this person's identity was extraordinary. Today he didn't wear a mask, revealing his original appearance. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and he was handsome. To be called the most handsome man in West Hill, he did have some capital. Different from Jian Fengqi, that kind of romantic person, Jiang Yuqing had a pair of affectionate eyes. When he stared at a person, it was easy to have an affectionate expression. This made people misunderstand that he had a rare gentleness. It was this pair of eyes that deceived her and pushed her to death. Looking at it now, under that thin layer of floating light, how cold and vicious was it? At that time she was really bewitched. That was why she was bullied to that extent by these two people. Chu Luiyue clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. A handsome and enchanting face suddenly appeared in her mind. Chu Luiyue's heart stirred. It was Rongxiu. Somehow the anger and resentment in Chu Luiyue's heart gradually calmed down. It was as if there was an invisible hand gently comforting her. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes, and a trace of nostalgia flashed across her heart. Only then did she realize that she missed Rongxiu so much. If only he was here now. Chu Luiyue thought silently and looked up at Jiang Yuqing. Looking at his face now, it was much more ordinary. His nose was not high enough, his eyes were not deep enough, and the shape of his lips was not good enough. The aura he exuded was worlds apart from that of his. When Chu Luiyue first saw Rongxiu, she knew that he was a rare immortal-like figure in this world. But now that there was a comparison, this feeling became even stronger. She really understood what it meant by the difference between clouds and mud. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue's mood suddenly became much better. Not to mention other things, at least she beat Shangguan in one thing. She had Rongxiu. Somewhere thousands of miles away. The sky was blue and the water was rippling. A huge island was suspended in mid-air. The rich force condensed into a white mist and drifted in all directions. A tall and straight white figure was walking on the waves. Suddenly, he stopped and gently placed his hand on his heart. Your Highness, what's wrong? Yan Qing asked behind him. Rongxiu lowered his eyes, his eyelashes trembling slightly, and then his thin lips curled up. Little heartless girl, you finally remembered me. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 541. Chu Luiyue naturally didn't know what her man was thinking at this moment. In her countless fantasies, she had always thought that when she saw these two people again, she would definitely want to cut them into pieces to dispel the hatred in her heart. However, at this moment when all of this really happened, she realized that something seemed to be different. The hatred and anger were still the same as before. The pain of being betrayed was etched in her heart, and she would never forget it. However, her heart seemed to be covered by a layer of armor, carefully protecting her. It was the armor that Rongxiu gave her. The hostility hidden in the deepest part of her heart seemed to have gradually faded. Because she knew that no matter what, there would always be someone in this world who would trust and love her gently and generously. She exhaled softly. She actually felt that she had never been so relaxed since her rebirth. At this moment, an idea suddenly appeared in her mind. After she settled these grudges, she must personally tell Rongxiu that she missed him and loved him. Chang Wanzhou stood beside Chu Liyue. He keenly sensed that Chu Liyue's emotions seemed to be changing back and forth before finally returning to calmness. Moreover, the feeling she gave off seemed to be different. He couldn't tell what was different, but he was sure that there was. Moreover, it was a good change. Previously, he had always felt that Chu Liyue seemed to be suppressing something in her heart. Even when she was smiling, there was always a trace of haze. But now, it was different. Sheng Guanwan and Jiang Yuqing sat down on the last two chairs. Although they hadn't officially married yet, the two of them were engaged. Moreover, they were recently discussing the wedding date and the process had already begun. Therefore, in the eyes of everyone there was no difference at all. After all, Jiang Yuqing was still helping to manage the court. The two of them were so close that they had already held a wedding ceremony. The 8 people sitting were about to bow when they were stopped by Sheng Guanwan. These 8 people were of noble status. Although she now held great power, she was still very polite and cautious when facing these people. The sect master of the Purple Shao Sword sect, Song Wan, smiled. "Old Song, I didn't expect your disciples to be so unyielding. Looks like you're still the same as before. You're good at teaching." As soon as he said this, everyone became even quieter and looked at each other in dismay. It seemed that everything that had happened here had been seen by these big shots. The round-faced woman immediately became nervous. If it was because of her that the pavilion master was bullied by others here, Yuchi Song's face seemed to be more haggard than the last time they met, but his gaze didn't change after hearing Song Wan's words. The disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion are naturally good. The leader of the 9-Star Alliance, Zhang Hua, sneered. "Old Song, is there no one else in the Chongshu Pavilion? How could they send such a little girl here? She can't even support her own pavilion and needs others to help her. Don't you think it's a little inappropriate for her to forcibly occupy a seat like this?" Yuchi Song glanced at him indifferently. "It's still better than some people who don't know their place and offend their superiors." Zhang Hua choked. Their 9-Star Alliance's status was indeed inferior to the Chongshu Pavilion. Even though the Chongshu Pavilion was about to collapse, they still had some confidence since they hadn't taken down the title of one of the 4 major sections. He was so angry that he laughed and turned the ring in his hand. "Old Song's words aren't without reason. It's my 9-Star Alliance's disciple who offended you. But I wonder if Old Song has heard of this saying? If one's virtue doesn't match his position, there will be disaster." The air at the scene seemed to have frozen. Wasn't saying this in front of Yuchi Song's face equivalent to scolding him? This was no longer a test but a naked provocation. To need the help of a little girl who's inexperienced? Has the Chongshu Pavilion fallen to this extent? Zhang Hua said with a sneer. Chu Liyue raised his brows slightly. In the past, Zhang Hua could be said to be extremely fawning over Yuchi Song and was extremely attentive. Once, in order to ask for a pill, he personally went to the Chongshu Pavilion. However, because Yuchi Song was still recuperating in seclusion, he didn't get anyone to inform him and waited outside for half a month. In the end, it was only when Yuchi Song went out and saw Zhang Hua that he knew that he was there. Because of this, from then on, Yuchi Song had always treated Zhang Hua very well and almost treated him as his own junior. The 9-Star Alliance and the Chongshu Pavilion were also very friendly and close. I didn't expect Chongsu Cabinet to suffer such a huge blow. The first one who couldn't take it was Jiuxing Alliance. Yuchi Song remained motionless in all directions. A just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support. What does it have to do with me if no one is willing to help the 9-Star Alliance? Although things were different now, as long as he was the pavilion master of the Chongshu Pavilion, he would never let anyone bully his disciple. You. Zhang Hua was furious. Yuchi Song had already looked at Chu Liyue. The distance between them was a little far, and Chu Liyue was standing at the back of the crowd, so it was not easy to find him. However, Yuchi Song still saw her at a glance. Weiqi Song was slightly taken aback at first glance. This woman's face seems familiar. Where have I seen her before? Chu Luiyue met Yuchi Song's gaze and nodded slightly. A thought flashed through Yuchi Song's mind. That's right. I've seen this woman once at 100 Herbs Building. At that time, most of his attention was on the seal, so he didn't pay much attention to his surroundings. However, because that woman was generous and rich, he paid more attention to her. He didn't expect that when they met again today she would take the initiative to help. Now that the Chongshu Pavilion's position was in danger, the people in Xiling City were avoiding them. No one was willing to have anything to do with them. This Chu Luiyue. She should know about this. However, she was still willing to step in. It was indeed puzzling. Shengguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing were not with these people previously, so they did not see the conflict between the two sides. However, before they came, their subordinates had already reported the situation to them. Therefore, Shengguan Wan looked calm, but her heart was filled with curiosity. As she searched the crowd, she smiled faintly and said, "Seniors, thank you for coming here today. I'm really flattered that you've taken the time to come here today. I'm really flattered. Your time and energy are very precious, so I won't waste any more time. Why don't we begin?" These words could be considered as giving them a way out, and they all nodded in agreement. Shengguan Wan nodded at Chan Yi, who was standing beside her. Chan Yi took a few steps forward. Her shoulders were straight, and her hands were crossed on her abdomen. Although she was wearing the clothes of a palace maid, she looked very dignified. Everyone looked at her aura and quietened down. She looked around and raised her voice. "The top 10 of the Wanzheng competition, please come forward." More and more people walked out from the crowd and stood in the middle, lining up in order. Shengguan Wan sat up straight. "Who is Chu Luiyue who got first place?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 542. It's here. Chu Luiyue muttered in her heart. After her rebirth, this scene had played out countless times in her dreams. Every time she thought about it, she vaguely felt that the flames in the Imperial Ancestral Hall that day still burned fiercely in her heart, wanting to completely burn her to ashes. The bright morning sun shone down gently and a gentle breeze blew. The air was still filled with the familiar fragrance of herbs. Everything was as clear as yesterday. Now she was Shengguan Yu and also Chu Luiyue. She had returned after so many hardships. She wondered how these old friends would react when they met again. Everything around her seemed to become blurry at this moment. Only the two people in front of her became incomparably clear. It even made her eyes hurt a little. Chu Luiyue took a step forward. "Chu Luiyue from country Yao Chen greets the third princess." Shengguan Wan looked over curiously. The woman stood in the middle. She was dressed in red, and her figure was slender and exquisite. Her black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. She lowered her head slightly so one couldn't see her full face. However, one could already tell that she was a rare beauty. "Raise your head," Shengguan Wan said. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered slightly and she slowly raised her head. The young girl had an oval face. Her fair and clear skin seemed to glow under the sunlight. Her black eyebrows were like falling crow feathers. Her nose bridge was delicate, and her cherry lips were slightly curved. Especially her pair of black jade-like eyes. They were bright and seemed to contain the stars in the sky. She was peerlessly beautiful and had a heavenly fragrance. That was what she was talking about. Shengguan Wan was stunned. The Tianling dynasty had never lacked beauties. Moreover, Shengguan Wan's appearance was also very outstanding. However, after this woman appeared, everything around her seemed to be overshadowed. She naturally attracted everyone's attention. Shengguan Wan felt a little uncomfortable, but what made her feel even more uncomfortable was that this face, for some reason, looked a little familiar. Jiang Yuqing was sitting next to Shengguan Wan. He could clearly see Chu Luiyue's face. Although he had seen it before, the impact seemed to be greater now that he was facing it head-on at such a close distance. The fingers in his sleeves moved slightly, but he didn't say anything. "I heard that you're only 14 years old this year?" His talent and strength were truly outstanding. Shengguan Wan suppressed the waves in her heart and said with a smile. Although it was a compliment, his tone still sounded high and mighty, as if he was commenting on something condescendingly. Chu Luiyue didn't think much of it and smiled. "Thank you for your praise, third princess." When she smiled, her eyebrows and eyes curved like the melting ice in early spring. She was sweet and lively, and there was a hint of nobility in her eyes. Even though the person sitting in front of him was the current ruler of the Tianling dynasty, He was still able to deal with him with ease and composure. Shang Wanwan's heart skipped a beat. He almost stood up from his chair. Those eyes and brows. This smile. It was clearly, Jiang Yuqing suddenly coughed. Shang Wanwan immediately came to her senses, but her eyes were still fixed on Chu Liwei. For a moment, she almost wanted to rush over and tear that face apart to see if there was another face hidden underneath. The few big shots around them all noticed that something was wrong with Shang Wanwan and looked over. Shang Wanwan immediately adjusted her expression, relaxed her body and leaned back in her chair. But only she knew that her hands and her sleeves were clenched tightly, and her nails were deeply embedded in her palms. Since you defeated the others, it proves that you have the strength. In the Tianling dynasty, strength has always been respected. You are worthy of this praise. Shang Wanwan barely moved the corners of her mouth. And, when I saw you, I felt as if I had seen you somewhere before. Your appearance is somewhat similar to an old friend. These words explained her loss of composure just now. At that moment, she almost thought that Shang Guanyu had turned into a malicious spirit and came to seek revenge on her. Yu Qisong and the others were stunned for a moment, and they couldn't help but look at Chu Liwei again. After a moment, a few people's expressions changed slightly. At first they didn't feel it, but after Shang Guanwan said that, they could all see it. Chu Liu's eyebrows and expression were somewhat similar to the princess in the past. It was fine when she didn't move or smile, but when she smiled, Chu Liu's smile deepened. Similar? Of course. Shang Guanyu's soul was in this body. She had deliberately tested it just now, and it almost scared Shang Guanyu out of her wits. She clearly saw that Shang Guanyu's entire face was distorted at that moment. Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian said the same thing before. Chu Liuwei pretended not to notice Shang Guanyu's abnormality. She retracted the expression in her eyes and smiled faintly. When she smiled, they didn't look alike anymore. Shang Guanwan's wildly beating heart gradually calmed down. Illusion. It should be an illusion. There are many people in this world who look alike. It should be a coincidence. However, she still couldn't help but glance at Jiang Yuqing. Jiang Yuqing gave her a comforting look and used his force to transmit his voice. I've already sent someone to investigate this Chu Liu's identity. There's no problem with her identity. Shang Guanwan then felt more at ease. Jiang Yuqing must have felt that they were similar, which was why he sent someone to investigate. She had always trusted his ability. Since he said that there was no problem, then there definitely wasn't a problem. Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. Shang Guanyu back then with the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, she couldn't be more dead. Why would she come back? However, her back was still covered in cold sweat. When the breeze blew past, her entire body turned cold. Yes. Actually, we don't look that alike. Shang Guanwan seemed to have collapsed and she was much more tired. Chu Liwei raised his brows slightly and asked softly, "Third princess, are you all right? Third princess, is there something wrong?" Shang Guanyu forced a smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. After pausing for a moment, she said, "Actually, I won't hide it from you. You're a little similar to my elder sister who has already passed away. When I suddenly saw you, I thought of my elder sister. I can't help but feel sad." As she spoke, Shang Guanwan's eyes were filled with tears. It seemed like she was really sad because of this. Jiang Yuqing lightly patted her shoulder. She has always doted on you the most. If she saw you so sad, she definitely wouldn't be happy." Shang Guanwan wiped away her tears. "Yuqing, thank you. I just miss my elder sister too much." She took a deep breath and seemed to be trying her best to keep all these emotions away. "I'm sorry for making a fool of myself." Everyone expressed their understanding. Could the third princess's elder sister be the rumored princess? Who else can it be other than her? Back then she was the true supreme existence of the Tianling dynasty. Impossible. Isn't there still the current emperor above her? Can the princess surpass him? You don't know this. That person was born with the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and she was destined to be the princess. Rumors say that she has a high chance of becoming the person to inherit Taizu's legacy. Thus, even the emperor would often let the princess make decisions. It's a pity that in the end, Chu Liuwei acted like she didn't hear those discussions. She smiled and said, "If the third princess's elder sister is here and knows that you miss her so much, she will definitely be very comforted. She will often accompany you and protect you." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 543. Chu Liu's casual words successfully made Shang Guanwan's emotions, which she had just calmed down with much difficulty, flare up again. However, she couldn't flare up in front of so many people. Moreover, to those people, Chu Liyue's words weren't wrong at all. Shang Wanwan could only swallow her anger and force a smile, but her face was a little pale. Jiang Yuqing knew that if he didn't say anything, things would get out of hand, so he immediately changed the topic. I believe everyone is clear about the purpose of inviting everyone here today. Chu Liyue, you're from outside the heavens canopy. According to the rules, you can join any sect here. Have you thought about it? Yuqi Song and the others looked over. The people waiting on the other side were even more curious. Which sect would Chu Liyue choose? She had the best results here. No matter if it was her talent or strength, there was nothing to say. She should be able to choose any of these sects, right? Who wouldn't want such a genius? I don't think so. She spoke up for the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion just now. Isn't that making it clear that she's going against the Nine-Star Alliance? Look at the way the Nine-Star Alliance's leader looks at Chu Liyue. He's not very nice. You don't know? Chu Liyue even offended the people from the Lingyun sect before. Elder Qiushi hates her a lot. She definitely won't go to the Lingyun sect. It seems like she even offended the people from the Purple Shao Sword sect and the Xianfeng Hall in the Tianling God realm. As they spoke, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. How did Chu Liyue offend so many people? How did she do it in just a few days? In that case, Dragon Teeth Mountain is the only one left among the 4 major sects. Oh right, didn't Jian Fengqi like her? She should choose Dragon Teeth Mountain, right? Chu Liyue didn't care about what those people were saying at first, but soon she felt a substantial gaze land on her. She looked up. The mountain lord of Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Shai, was looking at her with bright eyes. Curiosity, excitement, joy, relief, kindness. Chu Liyue's mouth twitched. Why did she feel that Jian Shai was looking at her as if he was looking at his daughter-in-law? Did he misunderstand something? Jian Shai could be considered to be the most elegant and handsome among these big shots. Jian Fengqi's face, which attracted countless admirers, came from his biological father, Jian Shai. The father and son had the same icy eyes and the same chiseled face. However, unlike the playboy Jian Fengqi, Jian Shai was famous for being a romantic. Back then, he had ignored his father's objections and insisted on marrying an extremely ordinary woman. Although outsiders didn't think highly of them, their relationship as husband and wife had always been very good. They had been loving each other for decades. To this day, he hadn't even taken in a concubine. This was part of the reason why Jian Fengqi could be so arrogant. In the entire Dragon Teeth Mountain, he was the only young master. How could he not pamper him? Jian Shai looked at Chu Liyue from head to toe. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. He almost slammed the table and shouted, "My son really takes after me. He has good taste. Look at this appearance, look at this temperament, look at this talent." No matter how he looked, he was satisfied. He and his wife had been deeply in love for their entire lives. Somehow they had given birth to a playboy. Because of this, he and his wife had a headache. More than once they felt that this son was useless. Which family's good son would sleep in Spring Breeze house every day, surrounded by a circle of women? Because of this, he had taught Jian Fengqi a lot of lessons, but it was useless. Recently, there was a rumor in Xiling City that Jian Fengqi had spent a lot of money on a woman. At first, he thought that Jian Fengqi was just being playful again. However, when he heard about the amount of money Jian Fengqi had bet, he suddenly felt that he was sincere. Later on, he heard that on the day of the Wanzheng competition, Jian Fengqi had specially gone to Xuanji Square to congratulate Chu Liyue in person. This was equivalent to irrefutable evidence. Therefore, he didn't come here today to choose a disciple. He came here to see what kind of woman the legendary Chu Liyue was like. Once he saw her, he was overjoyed. This Chu Liyue might have an ordinary background, but why would he care about this? Moreover, Chu Liyue's temperament was also very good. Those who didn't know her would think that she was a noble lady carefully raised by some aristocratic family in Xiling City. His son had finally chosen the right person for once. Chu Liyue was frightened by Jian Shai's exceptionally passionate gaze. If I really go to Dragon Teeth Mountain, I'll be stared at like this every day. The moment she thought of that scene, she felt uncomfortable. Therefore, Chu Liyue made a decision. I choose Chongshu Pavilion. As soon as she finished speaking, the noisy crowd immediately disappeared. The surroundings were silent as if everything had stopped. Yuqi Song widened his eyes slightly. Because things had happened too unexpectedly, he didn't even have time to be shocked. He was only filled with confusion and confusion. Just now did Chu Liyue say, choose Chongshu Pavilion? How can that be? Jian Shai was the first to object. Absolutely not. How can my daughter-in-law go to another place? Lu Yu, you should come to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Chu Liyue's eyes froze for a moment. Is Jian Shai openly snatching me? And why is he calling me by my name? This should be the first time we've met, right? No matter what, Jian Shai is a reputable figure in West Hill. Is this really appropriate? Yuchi Song immediately said, Jian Shai, what do you mean by this? Jian Shai cupped his fists and bowed to Yuchi Song. Elder Song, I've offended you. I don't mean to offend you. It's just that because of my son. I really think Chu Liyue is very pleasing to the eye. So, why don't you give her to Dragon Teeth Mountain? Don't worry, I definitely won't fight with you for the others. Many people secretly curled their lips. He wants to snatch the best one now. The rest are not as good as Chu Liyue. Doesn't that mean he doesn't have to snatch her anymore? Yuchi Song stroked his beard. We should let her decide for herself. As he spoke, he also looked at Chu Liyue. Lu Yu, I'm very happy that you want to come to Chongshu Pavilion and welcome you. However, Jian Shai wants to invite you to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Since he's spoken, I won't forcefully stop him. Think about it yourself. Which one do you want to go to? Dragon Teeth Mountain and Chongshu Pavilion had always had a good relationship. Moreover, he could tell that Jian Shai really wanted Chu Liyue to go to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken so directly. From his own point of view, of course, he wanted Chu Liyue to come to Chongshu Pavilion. After the previous incident, Chongshu Pavilion was now in short supply. They urgently needed to nurture a group of outstanding disciples to continue. On the other hand, Dragon Teeth Mountain's status and resources were better. For Chu Liyue, it was a better choice. Chu Liyue curtsied and said firmly, Thank you for your kindness, Mountain Master, but Lu Yu has made up his mind. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 544. Jian Shai still refused to give up. Lu Yu, you should think about it again, Chu Liyue smiled. Lu Yu doesn't deserve the Hill Master's kindness. Please don't make things difficult for Lu Yu. Jian Shai saw her serious expression and knew that it was useless to say anything else. He could only sigh. Sigh. All right. Since you insist on choosing the Chongshu Pavilion, then. As he spoke, his expression suddenly froze. He had already invited Chu Liyue to Dragon Teeth Mountain so enthusiastically and sincerely. Anyone would know which choice was better for their future development. However, she still rejected him so straightforwardly. Could it be that there was another reason? Could it be that his son had hurt the girl's heart? Jian Shai's mind raced. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. It must be so. Chu Liyue only saw Jian Shai's expression change rapidly. Finally, he said hatefully, This brat. Let's see how I'll deal with him when we get back. Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. Was he talking about Jian Fengqi? Jian Shai seemed to have really misunderstood. However, this was obviously not a good time to explain this. Chu Liyue thought about it and decided to wait for an opportunity to explain the situation in private. Thank you for your understanding, Hill Master. After saying that, she bowed to Yuchi Song. Lu Yu greets the pavilion master. Yuchi Song looked at the woman who bowed respectfully in front of him. His emotions were in turmoil and for a moment he felt as if he was choking. He didn't have much hope in coming here today. Everyone thought that the Chongshu Pavilion's luck was over. These young people came to West Hill despite the hardships to fight for a future. Anyone with a little ambition would not choose the Chongshu Pavilion. However, Chu Liyue made a choice without hesitation. Okay. Get up quickly. Yuchi Song got up and walked over. He personally helped Chu Liyue up. His originally haggard appearance was now much more spirited. Don't worry, Chongshu Pavilion will treat you well in the future. Yuchi Song enunciated each word solemnly. Chu Liyue nodded slightly. Thank you, Pavilion Master. She knew that Yuchi Song was a man of his words, and she also knew that he treated her very well. This had always been the case from the past until now. Other than Jian Shai, who was full of regret, everyone else's attitude towards this matter was basically the same. First, it was shock, then curiosity, and finally, some people felt sorry for him while others mocked him. But no matter what, Chu Liyue had already made his choice and the outcome was set. Jiang Yuqing looked at Chu Liyue with a slight frown. It turned out that Chu Liyue had already planned to speak up for the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion. However, he could not figure out why Chu Liyue would do such a thing. Next, where is Chang Wanzhou? Chang Wanzhou stood up. Many gazes landed on him, including Song Wan and the others. This golden-haired youth had an unruly aura all over his body. However, unlike the controversial Chu Luiyue, he had already reached a stage 6 warrior. This was a strength that could be seen with the naked eye. Everyone might question Chu Luiyue's first place, but absolutely no one would question Chang Wanzhou's second place. He was indeed the top existence among these geniuses. More importantly, he was like an unpolished jade that had not been polished. With a little guidance, he would definitely blossom with an even more brilliant and dazzling light. The major sects present were actually a little restless. They looked at Chang Wanzhou with a friendlier expression than when they looked at Chu Luiyue. Jiang Yuqing asked, "You can also choose these, Chongshu Pavilion." Chang Wanzhou spoke without hesitation. Jiang Yuqing instinctively asked, "What?" Chang Wanzhou pointed at Chu Luiyue. "She chose Chongshu Pavilion. I'm the same as her." Chu Luiyue blinked. Actually, she did not discuss this matter with Chang Wanzhou previously because she felt that he would choose with her. As expected. This child looks very obedient most of the time. "You also want to choose Chongshu Pavilion? Are you sure?" The one who spoke this time was Lingyun Sect's chief, Cheng Lifeng. He originally thought highly of Chang Wanzhou, but who would have thought that this kid would choose with Chu Luiyue? Chang Wanzhou frowned slightly. He had already said it very clearly. Why were these people still asking? "I'm sure." As he spoke, he had already walked directly towards Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue ruffled his hair. "I knew that you're very clingy." Chang Wanzhou's soft golden hair was messed up again, but this time he was not as angry as before. Ever since Chu Luiyue protected him in the Tianling God realm and called him Little Zhou, it seemed that it was very difficult for him to be angry with her. And during this period of time he knew that Chu Luiyue was mostly just joking with him. In fact, she really treated him well. Then, it was actually somewhat acceptable for her to ruffle his hair. When everyone saw how close the two of them were, how could they not guess why Chang Wanzhou chose like this? He clearly chose Chongshu Pavilion for Chu Luiyue's sake. If Chu Luiyue chose another sect, he would obviously choose as well. These two clearly came from different places. How did their relationship become so good in just a few days? Cheng Lifeng snorted. "I originally thought that you were a good seedling, but I didn't expect that a man like you would be led by the nose by a girl. This is really... I don't want you." Such a person would probably not have any future prospects. Chu Luiyue's eyes turned cold. Before she could speak, Chang Wanzhou looked at Cheng Lifeng and said coldly, "I didn't choose you. It's clear that I didn't choose you, so why do you say that you don't want me?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 545. Cheng Lifeng's face immediately turned red. Unable to back down, he could only point at Chang Wanzhou. You're so uneducated. Is this how your parents taught you to talk back to your elders?" Chang Wanzhou looked at him coldly. "I don't have parents." From the moment he could remember, he had been alone. He ate wild grass and slept in the wild. Not only did he have to avoid the attacks of wild beasts, but he also had to compete with them for survival resources. In his mind, there was no concept of parents at all. Cheng Lifeng was choked again. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. "You! How dare you!" Chang Wanzhou frowned. He had only said a few words of truth. Why was this person so angry and agitated? Chu Luiyue gently pulled his sleeve. Chang Wanzhou turned around and glanced at her before swallowing the rest of his words. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. She pulled Chang Wanzhou over, then stepped forward and said in a clear voice, "Sect Master, please forgive me. Little Zhou grew up in Nanjiang and doesn't know much about many things. If he offended you, please forgive him." Cheng Lifeng reprimanded, "He's really barbaric." The smile on Chu Luiyue's face did not change, but her expression was slightly cold. "Sect Master. Even if he's a little unreasonable, it's not his fault. Isn't it? You're the leader of a sect and have a noble status. I don't think you'll argue with a teenager, right?" The implication was that with Cheng Lifeng's status, if he really wanted to harp on Chang Wanzhou's words, that would be really petty. Cheng Lifeng waved his sleeves fiercely and looked away. After a moment he sneered, "He doesn't know the ways of the world. You're sharp-tongued." Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. "Thank you for your praise, Sect Master." Cheng Lifeng only felt as if his internal organs were squeezed into a ball, and it was very uncomfortable. Did this Chu Luiyue think that he could be arrogant and unbridled now that he had joined the Chongshu Pavilion? Chu Luiyue calmly stepped back and gave Chang Wanzhou a comforting look. Anyway, she had already offended the Soaring Cloud sect. According to Elder Qiushi's personality, even if she knelt down and begged for mercy, he might not let her go. Instead, he might become even more arrogant. Since that was the case, what did she have to be afraid of? At least on the surface, Cheng Lifeng didn't dare to do anything. Yuchi Song patted Chu Luiyue on the shoulder. Chu Luiyue knew that he was supporting him, so he smiled at him. Everyone had different expressions when they saw this scene. Chu Luiyue pretended not to see anything and quickly retreated to the back with Chang Wanzhou. The people at the back continued. Those with better rankings were basically not rejected. Moreover, many of them already had dealings with the pavilion before, so things went smoothly. At the back, some contestants who were not so outstanding were occasionally rejected. Those people could only settle for the second best. Even so, no one chose the Chongshu pavilion. However, whether it was Yuchi Song or Chu Luiyue, they didn't care much about this and simply watched. Chu Luiyue stood quietly at the side, but in reality she was discussing the purple gold Buddha leaf with the legendary three-eyed eagle. How is it? Can you confirm the location now? Chu Luiyue asked in her mind. The legendary three-eyed eagle paused for a moment and said with certainty, "It's southeast." Southeast? Chu Luiyue looked up. That was her previous music room. How come she didn't know that the purple gold Buddha leaf was hidden there? If you want a more specific location, you have to go there. The purple gold Buddha leaf's aura is basically blocked. There should be many barriers. It won't be easy to get it. Chu Luiyue rubbed her forehead. It was easy to say. If it was in the past, she would have gone if she wanted to. But how could she go now? Moreover, the security here was strict. With her current status, she probably didn't even have the right to get close to the music room. After thinking about it, she could only put this matter aside and look for another opportunity. After about an hour, everyone had finished making their choices. After that, those who were ranked at the top received a universe ring containing their rewards. After Chu Luiyue received it, she checked it and found that there were indeed a few good treasures. It seemed that Shang Wanwan had indeed put in a lot of effort for this Wanzheng competition. However, these things might be very precious to others, but they might not be enough for her. Especially now that she had the Dragon Abyss sword with her. Any one of the items in the sword hilt would be better than all of these. However, she still pretended to be pleasantly surprised, which attracted many envious and jealous gazes. Shang Wanwan stood up and looked around. Congratulations everyone. The Wanzheng competition is considered to be over. However, to all of you, your path to becoming a powerful being might have just begun. I hope that all of you can cultivate diligently in your respective sects and become a true powerful being. Everyone naturally agreed with him. I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave first. The scenery in Exanli Garden is not bad. Feel free to do as you please. With that, she turned around and prepared to leave. Third princess, please wait. A voice suddenly rang out. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes slightly. It was Yang Qin. Shang Wanwan turned around and glanced at her. What? Do you still have something to say? Yang Qin quickly stepped forward, bent her knees and knelt straight on the ground. She said with a grave expression, Third princess, I Yang Qin have something to report. Shang Wanwan had a deep impression of Yang Qin. Seeing her like this, she asked, What's the matter? Yang Qin paused for a moment. This matter concerns the Tianling God realm. I wonder? Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched. Is she planning to do something to me? Previously, I thought that Yang Qin would definitely not let this matter rest after suffering such a huge loss. As expected. She had been quietly waiting at the side for such a long time previously. So this was what she was waiting for. Hearing that this matter concerned the Tianling God realm, Shang Wanwan's expression immediately became serious. She pondered for a moment and said, Come with me. However, Yang Qin didn't get up. There are a few people involved in this matter. Who are they? Just say it, Shang Wanwan ordered. Yang Qin looked up as if she had made up her mind. Those involved in this matter are Choding, Ning Jiaojiao, Chang Wanzhou and Chu Luiyue. When everyone heard this, they were all shocked. These people were all in the top 10. Seeing Yang Qin like this, the matter should be quite serious. Could it be that something happened in the Tianling God realm at the last moment? The same guess appeared in Shang Wanwan's heart. She frowned and swept her gaze across these people. The few of you follow me. With that, she took the lead and walked towards the small courtyard at the back. Jiang Yuqing was half a step behind her. Only then did Yang Qin get up and follow her. When she passed by Chu Luiyue, she paused and said softly, There's going to be a good show. There's going to be a good show now. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 546. Chu Luiyue met her proud gaze and smiled. Yes. I hope you can enjoy it this time. Yang Qin-er's smile froze. Why is Chu Luiyue still so calm? She lowered her voice and said, be as arrogant as you want. You can be arrogant all you want, let's see how long you can last. She didn't believe that Chu Luiyue could still be so calm after everything was exposed. Chu Luiyue raised her brows. You can watch. With that, she turned around intending to follow the two. Liu. Yuchi Song called her worriedly. Yang Qin-er didn't come with good intentions. It seemed like she was here for Lu Yu. What could it be about the Tianling God realm? Chu Luiyue comforted her. Don't worry. Little Zhou and I will be fine. Seeing the confident expression on the girl's face, Yuchi Song's heart also calmed down a little. Be careful. I'll wait for you here. Chu Luiyue nodded and left with Chang Wanzhou. Seeing this, Yang Qin-er couldn't make up her mind. Could it be that Chu Luiyue already had a way to deal with it? Why are you still in a daze? Ning Jiaojiao walked up and saw that Yang Qin-er's expression wasn't right. Didn't they already agree on this? Yang Qin-er glanced at Ning Jiaojiao and felt a little more at ease. It's nothing. Let's go. In the quiet room, a faint sandalwood fragrance filled the air. This was a type of sandalwood that Shangguan loved very much. It could calm one's mind. When she was anxious or couldn't sleep at night, she only needed to light a little of this sandalwood to calm her down. But today this sandalwood seemed to be useless. Even though the fragrance kept lingering around her nose, her anxious and depressed mood didn't calm down at all. Instead, it became more and more intense as time passed. She and Jiang Yuqing sat at the head of the table, while Chu Luiyue and the others stood not far in front of them. Shangguan looked at Yang Qin-er sternly. Now you can speak. Yang Qin-er took a deep breath. She seemed to have expended a lot of effort before she finally made up her mind. Third princess, I would like to report Chu Luiyue for using despicable means to steal the Long Yuan sword in the Tianling God realm. As soon as he finished speaking, Shangguan suddenly stood up. She was both shocked and angry. What did you say? Jiang Yuqing's face was also full of shock, and he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Long Yuan sword? Long Yuan sword? Wasn't that the artifact personally forged by Taizu of the Tianling dynasty? Yang Qin-er knelt down again with a thud. Third princess. Chu Luiyue came from a lowly background, but he was audacious enough to snatch the Long Yuan sword that belonged to the Tianling royal family. Such behavior deserved to be punished. Every word that this commoner said was true. I didn't lie at all. Third princess, please judge clearly. It was a simple sentence, but it was like a clap of thunder on the ground. It stirred up countless waves. Shangguan's brows were tightly knitted together. No matter how bold Yang Qin was, she definitely wouldn't dare to joke about the Long Yuan sword. She stared at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue, is what she said true? Chu Luiyue's expression was calm as he said lightly. Third princess, I don't admit to a single word that Yang Qin said. Yang Qin sneered. You don't admit? Chu Luiyue, do you dare to say that the person who rushed out of the crater and snatched the Long Yuan sword in the Tianling God realm wasn't you? At that time, that ball of light was too glaring. She could only vaguely see a figure inside, but she couldn't identify who it was. After she was eliminated, she heard that Chu Luiyue actually came out after her and took first place. Only then did she realize that the person at that time must be Chu Luiyue, because only Chu Luiyue rushed into the golden sea of fire in the crater before them. In this way, the things that happened later had a reasonable explanation. The Long Yuan sword recognized Chu Luiyue as its owner, without a doubt. Chu Luiyue was shocked. What exactly are you talking about? It's fine if you don't admit it. The witnesses are right here. Yang Qin looked at Chou Ding and Ning Jiaojiao. At that time, Chu Luiyue fell into the crater in the Tianling God realm and disappeared. We all thought that she had already been eliminated. Apart from that, there were only the four of us near the Long Yuan sword. Chou Ding, you were also there when the Long Yuan sword awakened, right? Chou Ding nodded and said in a low voice, That's right. That's right. At that time, the Long Yuan sword had indeed started to awaken. As its surrounding aura became stronger and stronger, I couldn't take it anymore and took the initiative to leave. As for what happened after that, I really don't know. Shangguan and Jiang Yuqing were deeply shocked. The Long Yuan sword awakened? The Long Yuan sword that had been asleep for thousands of years actually awakened again. And they knew nothing about it. If Yang Qin hadn't taken the initiative to speak, they would have been kept in the dark. Shangguan's heart was about to explode. The awakening of the Long Yuan sword meant that it had to choose a new owner. For thousands of years, the Tianling royal family had always wanted to invite the Long Yuan sword out, but they had never succeeded. They didn't expect that the Long Yuan sword would awaken just because the Wanzheng competition was held once. Shang Wanwan really regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. "Continue," she said with gritted teeth. Ning Jiaojiao curtsied and said, "Third princess, after Chou Ding left, Yang Qiner and I discussed going together to see who was trying to snatch the Long Yuan sword. Hence we set off together. Unexpectedly, just as we moved, Chang Wanzhou chased after us and fought with us. At that time both of us were very confused. We didn't have any grudges with Chang Wanzhou, so why did he suddenly rush out to stop us? Later on, we understood that it was because the person who wanted to snatch the Long Yuan sword was Chu Luiyue." Sheng Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing both looked at Chang Wanzhou. That's right. Everyone could tell that Chang Wanzhou and Chu Luiyue were very close. Could even be said that Chang Wanzhou listened to Chu Luiyue on everything. Who else could make him help other than Chu Luiyue? Later on, I fought with Chang Wanzhou and was defeated not long after, so I was eliminated from the Tianling God realm. After I came out, I inadvertently saw Chu Luiyue's name still on the black jade board. Only then did I vaguely guess that that person was Chu Luiyue. Sheng Wanwan's face was gloomy. Yang Qiner was relieved to see this. She guessed correctly. The Tianling God Realm's Long Yuan sword was indeed the Tianling royal family's reverse scale. Whoever touched it would die. Since Chu Luiyue really dared to snatch the Long Yuan sword, then he would have to bear the wrath and responsibility of the Tianling royal family. She continued. After Ning Jiaojiao was eliminated, I wanted to fight with that person, but that person sent a mythical beast to deal with me. If I didn't see wrongly, that should be the legendary mythical beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle. I wasn't a match for that mythical beast and was defeated. Chang Wanzhou also chased after me. I couldn't handle it alone, so I was quickly eliminated. Chang Wanzhou stabbed me in the chest and the wound is still there. At this point, Yang Qiner's voice trembled slightly, and a trace of deep hatred flashed across her eyes. And when I left the Tianling God realm, I happened to see that person pulling out the Long Yuan sword. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 547. That proved that the Long Yuan sword had already recognized its master. Sheng Wanwan's heart was in a mess as she stared at Chu Luiyue. Now that these people have accused you of stealing the Long Yuan sword, what else do you have to say? Chu Luiyue looked calm. I didn't do it. Even if you ask me 1,000 times, I will only say this: I didn't do it. She looked very confident and didn't seem like she was lying. Sheng Wanwan couldn't make up her mind. On the one hand, since Yang Qiner and the rest dared to make a scene in front of her, they definitely had evidence. What they said just now was also true. On the other hand, the Long Yuan sword was left behind by Taizu. Logically speaking, only people with the Tianling royal bloodline could have a chance to awaken it. Chu Luiyue wouldn't have a chance. Yang Qiner was so angry that she wanted to laugh. Chu Luiyue, now that things have come to this, the evidence is irrefutable. Are you still not willing to admit it? How long are you going to deny it? Chu Luiyue said calmly. Why should I admit to something that I didn't do? Yang Qiner was about to retort when Chu Luiyue continued. The so-called irrefutable evidence is actually just the testimony of the few of you. There's no substantial evidence at all, right? In detail, Chou Ding only saw the Long Yuan sword awakening. As for the so-called, someone stole the Long Yuan sword, only you and Ning Jiaojiao saw it, right? Oh no, Chang Wanzhou. Chang Wanzhou suddenly said. I didn't see the scene that they were talking about. Yang Qiner said angrily. You said you didn't see it? Then why did you fight with the two of us? The injuries on her body were real. Chang Wanzhou pointed at Ning Jiaojiao. You used despicable means to eliminate people and pushed the blame to Luyu. Ning Jiaojiao's expression suddenly froze. Chang Wanzhou pointed at Yang Qiner. You, along with 2 senior brothers from the Purple Shao Sword sect, wanted to snatch Luyu's treasure. After being rejected, you flew into a rage out of humiliation and attacked her. Yang Qiner's eyelids twitched. It's obvious that you're in the wrong first. Don't tell me you're not allowed to fight back? As for your injuries, you're just too weak. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold. Every word he said was self-righteous. Yang Qiner felt guilty at first. You have a close relationship with Chu Luiyue, so of course you would speak up for her. What you've said is nothing more than the words of a single person. It's simply not trustworthy. No matter what happened at that time really happened. Chu Luiyue had no way to deny it. Jiang Yuqing stared at Chu Luiyue and frowned. Chu Luiyue, Other than Chang Wanzhou, do you have any other excuses? Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. Ning Jiaojiao sneered. Of course she has nothing to say, because she was indeed the one who did it. Shang Guanwan took a step forward. To say that Chu Luiyue's fiend was a legendary three-eyed eagle. It was indeed a little ridiculous. Chu Luiyue pinched Dumpling's ear to comfort her. Dumpling jumped onto her shoulder, but it was still puffing its cheeks in anger. Because of this small body, it was always looked down upon. It was really too much. If it wasn't for the fact that it had to cooperate with Chu Luiyue, it would have already rushed over and scratched Yang Qiner's face. Its black eyes were filled with murderous intent as it glared at Yang Qiner. Yang Qiner suddenly felt a chill down her spine. Secondly, the Tianling God Realm is where Taizu passed away back then. I heard that before the Wanzheng competition, the Tianling God Realm had never been open to outsiders. This is the first and only time it's open to non-members of the Tianling royal family. The Long Yuan sword is a legendary artifact. Even if it wants to awaken and choose a new master, it will definitely be decided by the sword soul. Do you think that the Long Yuan sword will choose someone like me who comes from an ordinary background and has nothing to do with the Tianling royal family as its new master? Where are you putting the third princess and the other members of the Tianling royal family? Chu Luiyue spoke slowly, but every word was hurtful. Yang Qiner and Ning Jiaojiao suddenly realized that something was wrong. They hurriedly looked at Shang Guanwan and saw that her face had indeed darkened. In fact, this was also a sore point for Shang Guanwan. She had always wanted to enter the Tianling God Realm, but she didn't have the chance in the past. After Shang Guanyu died, she thought that it was finally her turn. However, her Yuan meridian was completely destroyed and she could no longer enter the Tianling God Realm. Chu Luiyue gently stroked her glabella. Thirdly, and this is also the most important point, the Long Yuan sword still exists in the Tianling God Realm. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 548. You're spouting nonsense. Yang Qiner walked forward agitatedly, and her finger almost poked Chu Luiyue's face. I saw you draw out the Long Yuan sword with my own eyes. Invite any elder to enter the Tianling God Realm and you'll know whether I'm telling the truth or not. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and brushed Yang Qiner's hand away. Of course, the third princess can also go in to check and see who's lying. Shang Guanwan clenched her teeth. Of course, she wanted to enter the Tianling God Realm. But now that her Yuan meridian was damaged, she would die if she went in. She had been putting on a disguise for the past year, trying her best not to let others see that there was a problem with her cultivation. If she really went to the Tianling God Realm, her lie would be exposed immediately. She suppressed the anger and indignation in her heart, turned around and walked to Jiang Yuqing's side. Jiang Yuqing saw that something was wrong with her expression and immediately said, I'll send Elder Duanmu to check immediately. Shang Guanwan nodded, but the emotions in her heart could not be calmed down no matter what. Jiang Yuqing knew that she had suffered quite a blow today. First it was Chu Luiyue and now it was the Tianling God Realm. It wasn't a suitable choice to stay here any longer. He looked at Chu Luiyue and the others. All of you can leave first. When the results are out, the third princess and I will make our own decisions. Chu Luiyue had wanted to leave long ago. She really felt disgusted looking at these two faces. It was already very rare to be able to last so long. Thus, she answered without any hesitation and turned to leave. Little Zhou, let's go. Yang Qiner and Ning Jiaojiao looked at each other. That's it? We put in so much effort to defeat Chu Luiyue, but this was the result? Ning Jiaojiao asked unwillingly. Third princess, you can't let Chu Luiyue leave so easily. Didn't you hear what I said just now? Jiang Yuqing suddenly interrupted Ning Jiaojiao with a cold expression. Ning Jiaojiao was shocked and quickly said, No. We will leave now. Yang Qiner wanted to say something, but when she saw Jiang Yuqing's expression, she swallowed her words. Although she hadn't been in West Hill for long, she had heard a lot of rumors about Jiang Yuqing. He was not someone to be trifled with. Chou Ding had already taken his leave. Yang Qiner and Ning Jiaojiao stayed for a while before leaving reluctantly. As soon as he walked out of the room, Chu Luiyue saw Yu Qisong waiting not far away. Yu Ranran was also by his side. Hearing the commotion, the two of them turned their gazes over worriedly. Originally they wanted to welcome them, but there were many people around, so they could only stay where they were and wait for Chu Luiyue and Xiao Luo to walk over. Liu Wanzhou, how are you guys? Wuxia Song scanned the two of them from head to toe as soon as he saw them. Chu Luiyue smiled. What can happen to us? It's just that the third princess called us over to ask some questions. Really? Wuxia Song naturally didn't believe it. Judging from Yang Qin'er's expression just now, it was definitely not that simple. Of course. Aren't we fine now? It's getting late. Let's go back first. Wuxia Song could tell that Chu Luiyue had some things that were inconvenient for him to say, so he didn't ask any more and only nodded vigorously. Okay. Let's go back. Chu Luiyue and the others left safely. Yang Qin'er and Ning Jiaojiao weren't so relaxed. The two of them walked out of the door one after another and were blocked by Chou Ding, who was waiting outside. He was burly like a small mountain and gave off an oppressive aura. I don't care what you want to do, but don't involve me in this kind of thing in the future, Chou Ding said sternly. At first he didn't understand what was going on, but later on he saw it clearly. These two clearly wanted to lay their hands on Chu Luiyue and even dragged him down. Originally this matter had nothing to do with him, but now he had heard and seen it. He was completely tied to this matter. Although it wouldn't cause him to be punished, the feeling of being used for no reason was really disgusting. Ning Jiaojiao was frustrated and wasn't in the mood to deal with him. Got it? Chou Ding looked at the two of them warningly before leaving. Ning Jiaojiao was frustrated and could only vent her anger on Yang Qin'er in the end. Didn't you say that it was foolproof? What's going on now? Yang Qin'er wasn't any better than Ning Jiaojiao. Chu Luiyue caught them off guard. Until now, she still didn't understand how Chu Luiyue had the guts to let Shangguan and the others check the Tianling God realm. She remembered clearly that the Long Yuan sword was loose at that time. How could it still be there? Could it be that Chu Luiyue really didn't take the Long Yuan sword in the end? But that was the Long Yuan sword. How could Chu Luiyue not be tempted by such a powerful legendary weapon? Seeing that Yang Qin'er wasn't moving, Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but push her. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Yang Qin'er slapped her hand away and said impatiently. I'm listening. Do you think I'm not annoyed? If you have the time and energy to complain, why don't you think about what to do next? Ning Jiaojiao had a temper and was rarely contradicted like this, let alone by Yang Qin'er, who didn't have any background. She crossed her arms and said coldly, What do you mean by this? Weren't you the one who told me about this first? Now that you've dragged me down, it's clearly your fault, but you want to push the blame to me? If you didn't see it clearly in the end, how would things have turned out like this? Yang Qin'er sneered. Now that things have come to this, it's useless no matter what you say. When the third princess's results are out, it won't be too late for you to come and reason with me. If it's really as Chu Luiyue said, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Ning Jiaojiao lowered her voice and said hatefully before leaving angrily. Yang Qin'er didn't show it on her face, but when she recalled Chu Luiyue's confident expression just now, she felt a little guilty. After the few of them left, only Shangguan and Jiang Yuqing were left in the room. Shangguan sat motionlessly on the chair with a gloomy expression and resentment in her eyes. Jiang Yuqing walked out and saw this scene when he returned after instructing Chan Yi and Sun Qi on what to do. He paused for a moment but still walked over. You already knew, didn't you? Shangguan suddenly spoke, her voice cold. Jiang Yuqing frowned. What? Shangguan looked up and stared into his eyes. You've seen Chu Luiyue before. Why didn't you tell me that she looked like this? It was indeed because of this. Jiang Yuqing sighed in his heart and said, It's just a face. It's just a face that's somewhat similar. Why do you care so much about it? A strange sneer suddenly came from Shangguan's throat. Oh, is that really what you think? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 549. Her voice made Jiang Yuqing very uncomfortable. However, he still endured it and leaned over. Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you? Actually, I don't like her very much either, but I didn't expect her to become the champion of the Wanzheng competition. Even if it's for her Yuan Meridian, you have to endure it for the time being. Shangguan wasn't as easy to coax as before. The incident in the Tianling God realm had a huge impact on her, so much so that she was a little out of control now. She stood up abruptly and questioned, What? You dare to say that you really didn't think of anything when you saw her face? If you didn't feel guilty, why didn't you tell me anything before? God knew how shocked she was when she saw Chu Luiyue smile for the first time today. If Jiang Yuqing had reminded her previously, she wouldn't have lost her composure like that. What's there to feel guilty about? You just like to let your imagination run wild. I didn't tell you before because I felt that this matter wasn't worth mentioning at all. You've been too tired recently, so you're feeling uneasy. When your Yuan meridian recovers, everything won't be a problem anymore. Jiang Yuqing knew Sheng Wanwan's weakness too well, so he could always persuade her. As expected, Sheng Wanwan's expression improved a lot at the mention of this. Jiang Yuqing coaxed Sheng Wanwan for a while more before she was completely appeased. In the end, Jiang Yuqing personally sent Sheng Wanwan back to the palace and watched her lie down to rest before finally leaving. After Jiang Yuqing left for a while, Chani walked in. Third Princess Young Master Jiang has left. Sheng Wanwan opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and bright and she didn't look sleepy at all. She sat up and thought for a moment before instructing. Chani, go and check on that Chu Luiyue and find out her background. If there's anything wrong, report back immediately. Also, get someone to keep an eye on the Jiang family. See if there's anything unusual recently. Chani respectfully acknowledged the order and retreated. Only Sheng Wanwan was left in the hall. She lit the sandalwood incense and wanted to take a nap. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, Chu Luiyue's face would appear in his mind. And that face always made her think of more terrible things. After doing this a few times, she was so annoyed that she smashed everything in the house into pieces. She only stopped when there was nothing left to throw. Man. She finally opened her mouth and shouted. The palace servants outside immediately walked in. Clean this up. Sheng Wanwan ordered. The palace servants all lowered their heads. There was no surprise on their faces. Obviously, this was not the first time they had encountered such a situation. After tidying everything up in an orderly manner, another batch of identical items was placed on the table. It looked exactly the same as before. Sheng Wanwan finally gave up. On the other side, Chu Luiyue's group left Xanli Garden. Yuqi Song wanted to bring the two of them back to the Chongshu Pavilion, but Chu Luiyue declined. When he heard that Chu Luiyue was planning to buy a house in Weiling, Yuqi Song was a little surprised. When he saw Chu Luiyue for the first time that day, the people from the Mu clan followed by her side. It was as if they treated Chu Luiyue as an honored guest. She was living well in the Mu clan. Why did she suddenly want to move out? When Chu Luiyue saw his expression, she knew that he had misunderstood, so she explained. Pavilion Master, I was chosen by Vice Admiral Mu, but it was Jian Fengqi who brought me here. Other than that, I have no other relationship with them. Only then did Yuqi Song realize that he had thought too much. He coughed awkwardly. I see. The rumors in Weiling recently seemed to be true. Even he was starting to believe them. It's not appropriate to keep living in the Mu clan. Little Zhou and I have already moved out. Although they said they were moving out, the two of them did not have much stuff. Yuqi Song suddenly asked, Then do you have a choice? Chu Luiyue shook her head. The Wanzheng competition had just ended. They did not have time to deal with these things. That was why she planned to find a place to stay with little Zhou before going to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yuqi Song's expression changed slightly. If you don't mind, I have an empty house for you to stay in. The group walked 3 streets and arrived in front of a house. Chu Luiyue looked at the familiar door in front of her and was stunned for a moment. Isn't this Yuqi Song's house in Weiling City? In the past, when he was free, he liked to stay here for a while. Chu Luiyue had also been here many times. Although this house is a little remote, it's quiet. If you don't mind, you can stay here. As Yuqi Song spoke, he pushed open the door. There was no one inside and many things had been packed up. Recalling the scene of Yuqi Song selling seals at 100 Herbs Building, Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Is he planning to sell this place too? Seeing Chu Luiyue's expression, Yuqi Song thought that Chu Luiyue did not like it. Actually, no one has lived in this house for a long time. If you don't like it, no, this house is very good. Little Zhou and I like peace and quiet. This place is just right. Chu Luiyue hurriedly spoke and smiled brightly at Yuqi Song. If not for your help, little Zhou and I don't know when we would have found a house that we like. Yuqi Song was also very happy. It's good that you like it. It's good that you like it. Chu Luiyue said. Pavilion Master, little Zhou and I can't stay in your house for free. Yuqi Song immediately shook his head. Luyu, you and Wanzhou are already disciples of Chongshu Pavilion. There's really no need to be so polite. Besides, I'm really happy that you chose Chongshu Pavilion today. Compared to all of this, a house was nothing. Yuqi Song was sincere. If it weren't for Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou today, Chongshu Pavilion basically wouldn't have anyone to choose. In the end, it would only become a laughing stock. They were helping Chong Su cabinet and helping him save his last bit of face. Chu Luiyue wanted to say something but hesitated. Yuchi Song was obviously short of money now. Otherwise he wouldn't have started to sell these things. But he would never take his money. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and said, "Pavilion Master, I have something to talk to you about. Is it convenient for you?" Yuchi Song felt a little strange but he still nodded. Of course. Chang Wanzhou and Yi Ranran knew that the two had something to discuss, so they stayed where they were. Chu Luiyue and Yuchi Song went to another small courtyard. "Luyu, what do you want to talk about?" Yuchi Song looked at Chu Luiyue kindly. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath, took out a wooden box from his universe ring and handed it over. Yuchi Song's expression froze. This was clearly what he sold in 100 Herbs building that day. How could it be in Chu Luiyue's hands? Chu Luiyue said softly, "Pavilion Master, I bought this after you left that day. Now it's returned to its original owner. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love." Chapter 550. Yuchi Song didn't expect that what Chu Luiyue wanted to talk to him about was actually this. He looked at the wooden box with a complicated gaze and shook his head. "Since you've already bought it, it's yours. You don't have to return it to me." Chu Luiyue persistently pushed it forward. "You said that it's mine. Then it's my freedom to do whatever I want with it now, isn't it?" Yuchi Song was stunned. "Pavilion Master, you've helped me in Xiaozhou. Take this as our return gift. If you don't want to accept it, then we really can't live here with a clear conscience. I'm afraid we'll have to find another place to live." Chu Luiyue sighed softly. "The price of your courtyard is definitely higher than the price of this seal. Speaking of which, we've made a profit. Besides, I saw that you were really reluctant to part with this thing that day. It must have a very special meaning to you, right? Since that's the case, please accept it." Yuchi Song hesitated for a long time before finally taking the wooden box. Chu Luiyue was right. This seal wasn't his most valuable item, but he cherished it very much. Now that it was back in his hands after going through so much trouble, "Luyu, thank you very much." Yuchi Song looked at Chu Luiyue and said solemnly. Chu Luiyue's eyes moved slightly and he smiled. "I'm also a member of the Chongshu Pavilion now. Do you still need to thank me? In the future I'll have to rely on you a lot." Yuchi Song put away the wooden box. Knowing that Chu Luiyue was deliberately teasing him, he couldn't help but laugh. Since this matter has been resolved, when are you going to the Chongshu Pavilion?" Chu Luiyue blinked. "I'm afraid it'll take some time. I still have something to do." Yuchi Song asked curiously, "What's the matter?" Chu Luiyue revealed a meaningful smile. "Naturally, it's about money." Spring Breeze Restaurant. In a private room on the second floor. Jian Fengqi was lying on the couch as usual. One of his long legs was curled up, one hand resting on his head and gently waving the bone fan. Outside the screen, Shui Lu was playing the pipa. Jian Fengqi lazily closed his eyes as he listened to the music. He was so carefree and happy. Shui Lu was in a particularly good mood today. It was rare for her to finish playing a complete song. When the last sound fell, it really lingered in the air, lingering for 3 days. Only then did Shui Lu get up and walk behind the screen with the pipa in her arms. Then she bent her knees and bowed. "Young master, the song's over." Jian Fengqi opened one of his eyes and smiled as he threw a cosmic ring over. I'll take it. Stu to me to you, you to Stu. T's to test sot, Stu. Jian Fengqi smiled. "To T's. Little Lu, you're the only one in the entire West Hill." Shui Lu raised her eyebrows. "Of course it's because my song's worth the price." Jian Fengqi did not argue with her. He just smiled. Shui Lu sat down beside him. "Back to the topic. I was interrupted when I just started talking about what happened last time. Since we have time today, it's time for you to talk to me." Jian Fengqi stretched. "I knew you were going to ask this. I've just won some money and I'm very tired. Can't you let me have a good rest?" Shui Lu smiled like a spring breeze. "Haven't you been resting since yesterday? Isn't it enough?" Jian Fengqi immediately sat up. Cough cough, this young master was just speaking casually. "Don't mind it, little Lu, However, Shui Lu did not reply. An extremely gentle smile appeared on her delicate and charming face. Jian Fengqi coughed. "I've made some progress on the matter you asked me to investigate." Shui Lu's expression turned serious. "You guessed right. That person does enter the palace every once in a while. Nominally, he's a celestial physician who treats the emperor, but in reality his whereabouts are very secretive. His background is very mysterious. I've looked into it for a long time and his identity is indeed fake. As expected, Shui Lu murmured. I knew there was something wrong with that person. Have you found out his true identity? Jian Fengqi smiled bitterly. My little Lu, you think too highly of me. Do you think it's so easy to find out the identity of the Emperor's celestial physician? I can't enter the palace every day. It's already not easy to find out about this, okay? Besides, I've been busy with Mu Qinghe's matter. I don't have time. Shui Lu, pursed her red lips. Everyone in Xiling City knows that you two are rivals. Who would have thought that you're secretly helping him? It's not that I want to say this, but Jian Fengqi, you used to be on equal footing with him. Now you've become his errand boy. You're really something. Jian Fengqi's face darkened. You know that, I don't know anything. Shui Luer's expression turned a little colder. I've never stopped you if you want to interact with him. You have your reasons. But, you can distinguish between right and wrong. Little Lu, actually, I'm not listening. Jian Fengqi shut his mouth and thought to himself, this little Lu, looks as gentle as water, but she's actually very fierce. She's also stubborn, smelly and tough. It's a complete waste of saliva to talk to her. He decided to change the topic. Actually, my trip this time wasn't completely fruitless. Guess who I met? Shui Lu glanced at him lazily as if it was up to him to say it or not. Jian Fengqi sat up straight, leaned in front of her and gestured a number. 13. Shui Lu didn't realize it at first, but after a while she suddenly realized something and covered her mouth subconsciously. Her eyes were full of shock. The room fell silent for a moment. After a while Shui Lu whispered. Really? Her voice was trembling. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. Actually, I didn't see it with my own eyes. I just felt that the aura was very similar. But it's probably right. According to my guess, it's a bit like... He gestured another number. 7. He had always been very sharp in this aspect. Shui Lu was silent for a while. It seems that the rumor is true. They've all gone outside? Of course. Otherwise, how do you think they could hide for so long? In order to capture those 13 people, Jiang Yuqing had put in a lot of effort. If he didn't choose to burn the boats, how could he deal with this overwhelming pursuit? Shui Lu stood up with a serious expression. She hugged the pipa in her arms tightly and paced back and forth. Jian Fengqi knew that this was her reaction when she was nervous. Although so much time had passed, she was still very concerned about this matter. But they can't keep doing this. Shui Lu suddenly stopped halfway and quickly turned around. Outside the tightly locked door, there was the sound of light and quick footsteps. A clear female voice rang out with a hint of a smile on her face. Young Master Jian, are you inside? Jian Fengqi was stunned. Chu Luiyue. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 551. How did she find this place? Jian Fengqi's mind turned, and he immediately understood why Chu Luiyue was here. She's clearly here for money. His face darkened at the thought of this. Shui Lu quickly returned to her seat outside the screen, looking as if she had just finished playing. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Jian Fengqi's face darkened even more. She already knew which room he was in, so why was she still knocking? Seeing that he was not moving, Shui Lu went to open the door. As soon as the door opened, a beautiful woman's face came into view. Shui Lu played in Spring Breeze restaurant every day and had seen countless beautiful women. But when this woman appeared in front of her, her eyes still lit up. She revealed a faint smile. Miss? Chu Luiyue looked at the woman in front of her, a trace of surprise flashing through her eyes. Why was Shui Lu in Spring Breeze restaurant? Wasn't she from Jinchuan? There was once a popular saying, Lu's music moves Jinchuan. It praised Shui Lu for playing the people well. Jinchuan was thousands of miles away from the Western Tomb, so why was she here? The women in Spring Breeze restaurant sold their skills, not their bodies. Moreover, the cost was extremely high. Ordinary people could not even afford a sip of tea here, let alone listen to the women play and sing. It seemed that Shui Lu had become the top hostess of Spring Breeze restaurant. She suppressed the surprise in her heart and smiled. I'm Chu Luiyue. Shui Lu was stunned. Chu Luiyue's name was like thunder in the Western Tomb recently. She did not expect her to look like this. Shui Lu greets Miss Chu. Chu Luiyue glanced into the room. Is young Master Jian inside? Shui Lu gently nodded. Little Lu, I won't see anyone today. Jian Fengqi's lazy voice came from inside. Shui Lu secretly cursed Jian Fengqi for using her as a shield again. But she still looked at Chu Luiyue with a troubled expression. Miss Chu, you see, Chu Luiyue suddenly said. Sister Shui Lu, your hairpin is crooked. Shui Lu was shocked. She quickly turned around and walked to the front of the bronze mirror. She carefully looked at the hairpin on her head. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but smile inwardly. Shui Lu cared a lot about hair accessories. Other than the pipa, that was the second most important thing to her. Sure enough, nothing had changed. While Shui Lu was looking at the mirror, she walked in and went behind the screen. Jian Fengqi did not expect her to barge in directly, and he was stunned for a moment. Young Master Jian, it seems like you've been living a carefree life. Chu Luiyue sighed sincerely. When she came up, she had already heard that Jian Fengqi had booked all the girls' venues, but she didn't expect it to be the most expensive one. Shui Lu, if he hadn't relied on her to earn money, would he have squandered it like this? Jian Fengqi finally reacted. Why are you here? Little Lu, Little Lu, After Shui Lu was done with her hairpin, she heard Jian Fengqi's voice. She turned around and saw that Chu Luiyue had already walked in. Her heart skipped a beat. In a moment of carelessness, she actually forgot about this. Chu Luiyue smiled at Shui Lu. Miss Lu, don't worry. This has nothing to do with you. Shui Lu was stunned. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. No wonder she felt that Chu Luiyue looked familiar. Those eyebrows. Chu Luiyue looked at Jian Fengqi. Young Master Jian, actually, I'm here to ask you if you've forgotten something. Jian Fengqi saw that he couldn't avoid it anymore. He held his forehead in pain. I didn't forget. I promised to give you the money, not a single cent less. However, this young master has placed bets in all the major casinos. It'll take a few days for all these debts to be settled. I can only give you the money after I've settled everything, right? However, Chu Luiyue didn't fall for his trick. His smile became even warmer. I heard that in Shilin City, young Master Jian is famous for being a playboy. You're also a frequent customer of all the casinos. Even if their debts haven't been settled, you should at least remember how much money you've placed, right? Jian Fengqi's brain was very good. He always remembered clearly when it came to eating, drinking, and playing. This time he had clearly made up his mind to make a huge profit. How could he forget how much he had bet? I'm not asking for much. It's only 1/10 of your profits. You should still be able to fork out this small amount of money, right? As Chu Luiyue spoke, he let out a long sigh and revealed a worried expression. To be honest, I have no other choice. That's why I personally came to Chunfeng restaurant to look for you. I'm really short on money. Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. Where in the world did this lass hear all this from? She did all the talking. Are you kidding me? You're short on money? Jian Fengqi looked at her suspiciously. You're living and eating at the Mu residence. Could it be that Mu Qinghe doesn't give you any money? He's not that stingy, is he? Chu Luiyue thought that Mu Qinghe really had nothing to do with being stingy. Jian Fengqi, on the other hand, was very clear about it. Young Master Jian, you might not know, but I've already moved out of the Mu residence. Jian Fengqi was stunned. Oh, why did you suddenly move out? For the current Chu Luiyue, the Mu residence was actually an excellent choice. She had just won the Wanzheng competition, and now she wanted to cut ties with Mu Qinghe? Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered to explain too much to him. She only said that she was already a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion and would be living in Shilin in the future. That was why she found herself a house. Everything in Shilin is good, but the prices are too high. Food, clothing, housing, transportation, everything costs money. Young Master Jian, can you really bear to see me living on the streets? Chu Luiyue said sincerely. Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. She would live on the streets. It would be good enough if she didn't let others live on the streets. But, actually, I've bet most of my money in the casino. I haven't gotten back a lot of it, so I really can't take out so much in such a short time. How about I give you a portion first? Jian Fengqi was about to negotiate with Chu Luiyue. However, as soon as he said that, he received a disdainful look from Shui Lu. This guy took out 100,000 white crystal coins without batting an eyelid. Now he's pretending to be poor. From what he said, it was obvious that he had promised to share the money with Chu Luiyue, but now he wanted to renege on his promise. Bah, useless. She walked up and gently persuaded him. Young Master Jian, you've always been a man of your words and generous. Now that Miss Chu is in trouble, you'll help her, right? Previously there was a rumor that Jian Fengqi liked Chu Luiyue, but now it seemed to be complete nonsense. Jian Fengqi suddenly felt a lot of pressure. Finally, he gritted his teeth. Then I'll think of a way to raise the money. As he spoke, he took out a universe ring. Then he took out another universe ring. When he took out the fifth universe ring, Shui Lu Er's expression gradually froze. However, Jian Fengqi didn't stop. How much did he win? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.